writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa, PO Box 142365, Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
Thank you, Bridget. And the team top stories at 3 manhunt after man accused of murder escapes and talks resume for a ceasefire deal in Gaza. For SAFM News, I am Ondalambana and a very good afternoon. The 29-year-old man arrested for allegedly killing a 14-month-old baby has escaped from Mtsilidini Hospital outside Thohoyandou in Limpopo. He was admitted to hospital after he attempted to commit suicide inside the holding cell at the Thohoyandou police station on Monday. The suspect allegedly strangled the baby to death and kidnapped the baby's mother 2 weeks ago. Michael Makungo reports.
Police say the suspect escaped yesterday before being taken to court. He was due to appear in the Thohoyandou Magistrate Court. His case was postponed to Tuesday next week. Police spokesperson Volizani Dati says it is not yet clear how the suspect managed to escape as they're still busy investigating. Michael Makungo, SABC, Polokwane.
Action SA and the Forum for Service Delivery have merged and will contest the 2026 local government elections under one umbrella. Action SA has also announced that Forum for Service Delivery leader Dr. Mbahare Kekana will now assume the position of Deputy President at Action SA. The Forum for Service Delivery, which was formed in 2015, currently holds 38 municipal seats in 5 provinces. Speaking in Johannesburg, Action SA National Chairperson Michael Beaumont says both organizations will now contest next year's elections under one big green umbrella.
Is that going forth from this time, these organizations will campaign under the banner and the identity of Action SA. We will campaign together and we will contest the 2026 local government elections as Action SA. Action SA has amended our constitution to ensure that we have established the position of a deputy president of our organization.
Some parents are worried about the safety of learners at Kutakeni Primary School outside Giani, Limpopo. The school has been damaged after a storm hit the area in December. Part of the school's infrastructure has been declared unsafe for occupation. These parents want urgent intervention from government.
We need help with the kitchen and then to repair the school, the roofing of the school. Maybe a new classrooms will be good for us to get that one. I'm feeling great because it's the first day of the school, but because of the situation, we're not good at all because we don't know where to put our children, and we have many children here. So please, if we can get help, the sooner the better will be good for us.
As parents, sometimes we are scared that the roofs sometimes will collapse on top of the children.
School governing body chairperson January Baloyi says the school must be repaired urgently.
We are a bit worried with the condition of our classrooms. As you can see behind me, the classrooms are affected by the storm and the rain. One crucial issue is about the nutrition center. Our learners don't have a place where we are going to cook their meal as for today. So because of that, we are worried. What we need intervention from the government to repair or build another classes for our learners.
Negotiators are resuming talks in Qatar on trying to secure a Gaza ceasefire deal, with all sides suggesting a final agreement is close. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has met senior security officials to discuss the proposals, which have been presented to both sides. The BBC's John Donnison has the details.
We're almost there, but not quite. So what the mediators are saying is that the broad principles have been agreed between the two sides, but they're still wrangling over what they're calling technical details. So how this deal will actually be implemented, how prisoners might be exchanged, at what point hostages will be released. But we could see hostages, 3 hostages apparently being released on the very first day, and then the rest of those 30 or so hostages coming over the next 6 weeks.
Recapping the top story, the 29-year-old man arrested for allegedly killing a 14-month-old baby has escaped from Tselitsini Hospital outside Thohoyandou in Limpopo. I am on Delambana for SFM News headlines at 3:30.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Novak Djokovic back in the record books again, and Crusaders named first back captain, and London Derby takes centre stage today. More details at 3:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
The Oranges boys want to wrap up their group campaign on a winning note, while Stellies want to deliver a masterclass performance to triumph away from home. This is the Total Energies CAF Confederation Cup. Experience the joy of African football. RSB Pekane FC versus Stellenbosch FC on Sunday, 19 January at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The SAFM Playwriting Competition is closing on the 3rd of February 2025. Explore the theatre of the mind and write your 60-minute radio drama play and email it before 5 p.m. on the 3rd of February 2025. Late submissions will not be accepted. For further information about the competition, visit safm.co.za or send an email to drama@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
A warm welcome, good afternoon. This is the National Pulse. My name is Ashraf Garda. Welcome to the show. Lots to come over the next 3 hours. But first things first, it's January. Now, to save money, you could turn off the house lights and use your cell phone flashlight. Or you could switch to OutSurance and save on your car insurance premium. Get a quote, and if OutSurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 rands in cash. And make that 1,500 rands if you've been claim free and with the same insurer for 3 years. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With OutSurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP T's and C's apply online.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
There's no question what's been moving the National Pulse over the last couple of days. I think predictably, as we came back from the holidays, we got smacked back into matric results and the various interpretations of what those results mean to all of us has been central. Then, of course, linked to that has been the beginning of the school year, which started today. So we'll talk about other things. We will certainly talk about Mozambique just now because there's an inauguration of a president as well. We'll talk about that too, and many other things, including the fact that the USA will have a new president inaugurated soon. And we'll play a fascinating chat later on with Sherwin Bryce-Pease together with now South Africa's ambassador to that country, Ibrahim Rasool. All that coming up later, but there's no question the biggest issue has got to stay with education in South Africa. So my name's Ashraf Garda, and you can engage not just by listening in, by calling in to 086 000 2032. And then you have the options to send us a WhatsApp in text or voice note form. If it's voice note, keep it to 30 seconds. It really helps, okay? 0614 104 107. And you can tweet on the X platform. Just tag SAFM Radio, tag myself, Ashraf Garda. Do use the hashtag The National Pulse. And I notice increasingly many people are expressing their opinions on that X platform. So please do so. I'd gladly share that and ask questions on your behalf as well. Well, certainly one of the most significant questions to be asking, besides reflecting on what happened regarding the matric results and the interpretations thereof, is just what is the standard of the state of our education and what is the standard of our education. That comes up because there's been discussions even yesterday. We've had callers saying, you know what, the private schools or independent schools, they write a more difficult exam than what I would call state schools. True or false? That's one thing. Interestingly enough, in that context, the Premier of Gauteng, Panyaza Lesufi, has in fact been calling for these two bodies, because you really have an either or by and large, to write the very same exam. So we thought, you know what, we'll talk to him about other things, but we'll certainly talk to him about the exam. So first things first, the Premier of Gauteng, Panyaza Lesufi, appreciate your time and thanks for connecting to us here on the National Pulse.
Oh, thank you so much, Ashraf. Are you well? And compliments of the new season.
I'm pretty well indeed, yes. I think we smack bang into 2025, and I pray, and I've said this to others too, that not just me and you, but every one of us, individually and collectively as a country, we must absolutely get things right, okay?
Indeed.
Which then I think is a necessary segue to where we are now. Let's start with this, right? You've pronounced on this issue of we should have one exam. I was thinking, some people were saying, really, we didn't even know there were two exams. We just thought there's two different types of schools, but one exam. So what is the state of play, firstly, with regard to matrics writing exam? What sort of examination body governs what they do?
Maybe this background will assist. What happened, Ashraf, is that post-1994, we had, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and I hope I'm not exaggerating the numbers, we had almost 16 education departments in the country. With Kwandebele having their own education department, we have home states like Wuputatswana, Siska having their own education department, and we also have education departments that were based on race for white people, and we also had it for Indians, coloreds, and black people. So we then matched them regardless of their resources, their capacity, their skill, and the infrastructure that have. And that led to what we called the National Department of Education. And I'm deliberately using the word education.
Mm-hmm.
And then subsequent to that, we felt that it should be separated into higher education and higher and basic education. That's why we have got two ministers there. But there's a transitional arrangement that you merge all the departments so that you build a truly non-racial. But we also knew that there were other independent bodies like IEB. There's also the other one is in Afrikaans. Unfortunately, I can't pronounce it. But we knew that the infrastructure and the resources and the curriculum was not the same at that time. And therefore, it won't be risky because we're trying to find our own curriculum at that time. But they were already galloping another thing. And I want to emphasize that the curriculum of the country is one. So we have one curriculum framework. So with those particular changes, we felt that there are people that their resources are not balanced. You know the story of the pit toilets, learners learning under the tree, schools that don't have facility and other things. So let's concentrate and put our resources there first. And then appropriate level, when everything are fine, then can have this debate and this discussion that I'm talking about.
Okay, so in fact now you're wanting to have this debate.
Yes.
I mean, there can be others like this, the Cambridge results, but I mean those are much smaller. But by and large, you have the IEB, so independent board, and then of course you have what are called state exams, right? What are you proposing?
I'm saying inequality must be defeated. We're a country that has a high level of inequality completely compared to any other country. And therefore, we must defeat that. And therefore, if we love our children, all of them must get the best quality education. All of them. Regardless of their financial status, they must have the best quality education. So what we have now is that if we have these two bodies having different examination bodies, but the same curriculum, when these children pass these exams, they go into the same lecture room, which simply means they go and write the common exam in the university. Because in universities, you don't have children that are writing an IEB engineering course examination or IEB medical examination. They write the same. They're in the same lecture room, taught by the same teacher. So you can't therefore continue to perpetuate that these two bodies must be separate. Secondly, which is very key to me, is that the pass mark is the same. Those that are arguing that children are passing at 30%, even though it's not there, even IEB, they've got a 30% pass mark. The regulator is the same, which is called UMALUS, who checks that indeed the system are the same. That's the person that take the question papers and say, the question paper that we have set for children, we certify that's a question paper that must be written by learners.
Okay.
The results after they've had the marking It's Umalusi that satisfies, both in IEB and also in National Senior Certificate in terms of a basic education. So you have the same regulator, you have the same pass mark, you have the same curriculum. What becomes difficult, therefore, to say, let's go into the next stage that we have suspended for too long. In the last 20 years, we have suspended this transition because we wanted to fix infrastructure, we wanted to ensure that things are fine. But if you check now the performance, the IEB has given us almost, I think, 98% pass. We are now, in terms of public education, we are now almost at 88. So the gap has been closed, not fully, but reasonably so. So the differences are becoming minimum.
Okay.
The best student in Gauteng, for example, the best student that is beat learners that are in Sentin, that are in Four Ways, that are in the best student in this particular province come from an RTP house in Guatemala. He's the best.
I saw that, yeah. Quite fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's pick up on this. So,
yeah.
You made the point about Umalusi playing a very important regulatory role, right? So at this point in time, since there's been 2 examinations, right? Yes, governed by Umalusi, have they been at different standards? That means, are the levels different? The curriculum you said is the same, but are the standards of the questions different or not?
Yes. That is why I'm saying, let the best standard be written by all children. We don't want to downgrade. If the standard of IEP we feel is the best one, let all the children write, because these are the children of South Africa. Why do you divide them? Why do you want other children to write a better standard and other children to write another standard when they belong to one country?
Okay. Can we confirm that the IEB standard is actually, of questions is actually higher? Is that correct?
I'm told. I've been in the education space for quite some time, so I'm told it's higher. But remember also the numbers. The IEB, if I'm not mistaken, we're talking about 12,000 learners, and the public education system we're talking about almost 700,000.
Yeah.
So the numbers are huge. But you can't have the privileged few, because we're not disrupting the exam. We're not saying, because I've seen other people insulting me that I want to disrupt private education. No. We say continue. But if your system is the best, let all our children write the best education.
All right.
Because these are the children of the same country. These are the children that go to the same university. These are the children that write the same exam in the university. Why should they write the same exam in university, but they can't write the same exam in grade 5, but in grade 12? But the debate by other education experts, unfortunately, it's clouded into the political space that we're in. And it's clouded by insult. We are not saying...
Explain what you mean, clouded by insult? What has happened?
I mean, many people have been insulting us that we have destroyed education. Now we want to destroy private education, which is not true. I mean, where we come from with our education system and to where we are now, you can see tangible progress. But the reality is, Ashraf, if you are my child who can be in IEB and your child who can be in the basic education, public education, can sit in the same exam and be taught by the same lecturer and write the same exam at university, are we not denying them an opportunity to start understanding that situation while they're still in grade 12? Because if you check the number of people that are enrolled for first year in universities across, and check the number that graduate, there are a lot of learners that are lost out. And I want to argue that is attributed to these differences, artificial differences that you have.
Okay.
Because if you analyze those that are dropping out, you will see that we are perpetuating inequality here.
All right, so
that is why.
Let me just say this. I mean, I think if someone, for example, does accountancy and they write a board exam, or they study law and there's a board exam, then that is a unified board exam, right? But at university level, although there's a curriculum at different universities and different standards, or rather a similar standard, in fact, each university, my understanding is they set their own exam. That means a UCT exam is not the same as a WITS one. But your point that you made is that they would get the same exam if they go to the same varsity, but they wouldn't get the same exam if they go to 2 different varsities.
Yes.
So your point about your proposal as a means to eliminate inequality. Why do you think that's the most important issue, to eliminate inequality? Many may say that in fact there could be other proposals like absolutely escalating the need for schools that are struggling in terms of facilities to get the facilities they require. That would be the important issue, and get the right teachers there as well.
Why not both? And that's what they've been doing. We've escalated quality. That's why a township learner can be the best, because we've invested in that. We've escalated infrastructure. We're building new schools, better schools compared to what apartheid schools were building for us. So you can do both. But the argument here is that why divide our children if you love them? Whose children must have a better education and other children must have a better education on the basis of their financial pocket? That's wrong. You are perpetuating something that I love our children, all of them. And that's why I'm taking the stand, or proposing the stand and post, because I want all our children to, actually the children of the poor must be the one that get quality education, because they don't have options.
Well, I want to find out, just in terms of your thought, just how will that proposal carry through, which we'll get right after this.
My name is Bandi Linyawane. I'm 17 and I'm a professional cricket player. While on tour, I was battling to keep up with school. So my parents moved me to UCT Online High School. It's changed the game for me, with the ability to learn from anywhere. I can get ahead and stay ahead. Sign up at uctonlinehighschool.com. It's not too late. Applications close 20 January 2025.
After a 1-0 draw in Morocco during the first 90 minutes, Masandawana and the leader are both hungry to wrap up the group campaign with a win. The South locks horns with the North. This is the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Witness the thrilling flavor of African football. Mamelodi Sundowns FC versus AS Farabat FC on Sunday, 19 January at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Lots of people commenting about the conversation we're having, myself and the Premier of Gauteng, former Education MEC, of course, in Gauteng, Panyaza Lesufi, who's made the point that, in fact, by and large, when it comes to private schools and state schools, they have the same curriculum, but they have a different exam, and that has got to change. One of the comments from Kathy saying, Ashraf, Mr. Lesufi talks nonsense. Whose fault is it that pit toilets and teaching under trees still exist? He does want to disrupt excellent schooling and destroy Afrikaans schools. He's not qualified to discuss school education. And then saying again, his whole argument is skewed. I won't go into the pit toilets part because we've brought that up already. What has been the response so far from educationists? And I'm talking about particularly people who are involved in independent schools right now to your proposal, Premier.
No, obviously, it's not a debate that is for everyone. I mean, the person that I've just read, I'm not sure is their voice note. I mean, it's the insults that I was talking about. That when we put a debate on the table, instead of engaging with the debate, to choose to insult. And we have put it, I'm following various experts, just divided the education space, not divided in terms of race or whatever. Is divided in terms of the thoughts and the ideas, and that is why I say it's a debate. Let's put it there in the public. I'm glad you're putting it in the radio. That's why I've agreed when you invited me. I've declined other people because they insult you. They're not putting a debate in the public space. So here is a debate. We've got one country, must have one examination, and all our children must write that examination to determine their capabilities.
How do you move the debate? How do you move the debate from a debate into an actual proposal that gets tabled and agreed upon or not? What would be your timelines?
Well, for now, we are trying those that agrees with us to put it in the political party that we come from, because it's not the position of the ANC as well. That must be clear. It's individual view. So we'll want to plant it in the political space, and if the political party, when we go to either policy conference or we go to the next conference, agrees to it, then those that are mandated in government then will be given an opportunity to discuss the matter. But we really feel it's something that South Africans must discuss, and if they feel that the moment is not right to discuss it, we'll accept it. But if they feel the moment has arrived, then we'll find a mechanism of attending.
Well,
to it.
we'll certainly raise that issue in the months ahead. I'm sure about that. Here's the last thing to you. I think what is also open for debate right now. Just a quick answer on this one before we wrap up. Right? Is whether it's private schools or public schools, doesn't matter. There's a big discussion around the quality of the education that the learners are receiving in terms of meeting the needs of a market that needs to employ them. And I said it on the back of massive unemployment. And as we know, I had a chat with the Minister of Health last week. Medical doctors not getting jobs, lawyers not getting jobs. Here's the question. How do we ensure that the education that they get not just skills them, but actually gets them placed into the economy? Otherwise, it would simply be an academic piece of paper that they have.
Exactly, and that's the reason why we say let's go for the best quality education, so that we don't produce exactly what you are saying. And if the best quality of education that the country can produce is the one that can take our children to a higher level, let's do that. Let's go for it.
But are you saying that we have the wrong? That currently, our curriculum is not suited to the demands of South Africa's economy right now?
Well, it depends. Where I stand, I really believe that we've moved. I always tell South Africans that if we wanted what we have now, that's why people who tell us about 30 years later you are putting this thing, they don't understand where we come from. If we wanted what we have now, we would have said in 1994, immediately after freedom, say, keep your children at home, we're changing schools. Keep your children at home, we're writing new textbooks. Keep your children at home, we're training teachers. Keep your children at home, want to eradicate all pit toilets. Keep your children at home. We'd have kept your children either for 3 to 5 years while we are trying to fix those things. But we opted of fixing the system while we are moving, just like changing the engine of an aeroplane that we're flying. And I'm proud that we've done that so that our children now can get a better quality education. It's the option that we've taken as a country on the matters of education.
Okay, we need to wrap up. I'll give you just 15 seconds for one answer. Of all the priorities in education right now, what's the one thing you want to see get right? Just in 15 seconds.
The ability for children to read and write. It's very important. If you don't understand that, we'll miss everything.
Okay, that's where we can leave it. Panyaza Lesufi, the Gauteng Premier and former MEC for Education in that region as well. It's a fascinating story, and I'm sure you have your opinions about that. But let's now rush quickly off to Mozambique. They have a new man in charge.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So after months of deliberation and protests and counter-protests and deaths as well and contestation of that election, Daniel Chapa now officially is the president of Mozambique, right? He took the oath earlier today and he's made lots of promises. There's also been sort of counter-arguments to that. Let's find out what happened today and perhaps more importantly, where to now for Mozambique with Helio Gulish, who's the political analyst based in that region. Helio, appreciate your time and thanks for connecting to the National Pulse.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you.
Again, thank you.
So, okay, we now have a president. We know a week ago we spoke about the opposition leader coming to Mozambique, in fact, claiming the presidency in a way. What has happened since then to the point where there's comfort in actually having a president inaugurated?
Well, the inauguration ceremony was overshadowed by the absence of Mozambique's main partners, heads of state, with only Cyril Ramaphosa from South Africa and Umaru Sissoco Embalo from Guinea-Bissau, being other countries represented by other governmental entities, which is per se showing that there is some shadows in terms of representation and in terms of confidence, in terms of trust between and or among these countries. So the ceremony was also marked by the clear separation between the main party in power, which is Frelimo, and the overall people who were not present in this ceremony, and showed that there's a kind of disgust and discontentment. So for these who attended the previous inaugurations at Independence Square, was notorious that a huge clearance and strong police and military contingent which characterized the situation within the country. So regarding the opposition, now we have the new party, which is Podemos, the new main opposition party that took a position at the parliament with some 44 deputies, and the traditional opposition parties, which are Renamo and MDM, they opted for a clear boycott for this ceremony. Looking concretely at the ceremony, I would prefer to highlight a very strong and courageous speech from Daniel Chapo, the new Mozambique president. A speech that marked a break with the spendthrift of culture from his predecessor, and with a clear disinvestment on education, health, and infrastructure. So Chapo inherits the country as a kind of divided and visibly upset, with 3 months of demonstrations, of manifestations, looting, and barbaric killings perpetrated by the police. So the challenge of Chapo will be mainly bringing together all these people and reconcile the people from Mozambique, a task that will require a very political and high engineering for the country.
Okay, and as we wrap up, how do you think well, two things. Is he able to do that, number one? And if he is able, what for you strategically should be his plan of action of bringing effectively people on the outside in?
Yeah, a very interesting question. He's able to do that in the sense that he's representing the new generation of politicians in Mozambique. But the only condition that Chapo can perform these changes are kind of work independently without pressure from the Frelimo Political Commission, which is always interfering in the political decisions. If Chapo is able to have his own government expressing his desire, so then he can put the country working step by step to reconquer the people. But if there is a political interference from the Central Committee and Political Commission, so then Chapo will have his whole story marked by interference and somehow misgovernance, because the country is swimming into this, is diving into this for more than 4 decades. So the strategic that Chapo can use is to be firstly at the next Congress, he has to take the country presidency and then reconstruct and reformulate the political commission.
Okay.
So then he will have their own chess on the table.
And can he do it? And that's the million-dollar question. Helio Galicia, who is a political analyst based in Mozambique, on a day where Mozambique now officially has a new president inaugurated, notwithstanding the fact that the opposition parties were not there, and most of the SADC countries and others were also not there. The one big name with an asterisk marked present is South Africa. Let's get the news headlines here, Zondela.
On the SADC.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines, newly appointed Action SA Deputy President Mbahare Kekana says the party's key focus in the 2026 local government elections is to win many municipalities with an outright majority. The 29-year-old man arrested for allegedly killing a 14-month-old baby has escaped from Tilidzini Hospital outside Thohoyandou, Limpopo, and one person has died and 11 others have been injured in a head-on collision between 2 vehicles at Highgate in East London in the Eastern Cape. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound slow moving towards the Boysons exit. The M1 southbound in Melrose has a crash near Colette Drive. The N3 northbound in Bedfordview queuing on the link to the N12 east at Gillies interchange. Bayers Naudé Drive northbound in Melville has a crash near Thomas Brawler Street, and Eskemperleli Drive northbound in Pretoria has delays towards Mood Street. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a crash recovery near Sibaya exit. The M4 southbound is slow moving towards Sibaya Drive. The N2 southbound, a stationary truck after Umgeni Road. On the N3, a truck crash involving an overturned large abnormal load truck near Van Reenen Village has delays. And Umgeni Road westbound, slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. The N1 outbound has a stationary vehicle before Gilberson Drive. Badengracht Street outbound is slow moving towards the elevated freeway. Strand Street westbound, slow moving towards High Level Road, and Victoria Road is slow moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, for the first time today on the National Pulse, it's our Minister of Sports, to me. Let's talk tennis.
Well, a very good afternoon to you. Novak Djokovic has found himself in the record books yet again, and this time is for the most Grand Slam matches played in tennis history by reaching 430, going past Roger Federer. Djokovic lost a set against 21-year-old Jamim Faria before pulling off a 6-1, 6-7, 6-3 and 6-2 win to advance to the third round, and this saw his career score level go up to 379 for 51. He's still in line for more records because should he win the Australian Open title, it would give him his 25th Grand Slam trophy, an unprecedented accomplishment for any man or woman, and it would also mark his 11th Australian Open crown. But looking at other results, 19-year-old Jakub Mensik stunned Casper Ruud in a 6-2, 3-6, 6-1 and 6-4 win to book his spot in the Australian Open third round. Alexander Zverev made light work of Pedro Martinez in a 6-1, 6-4 and 6-1 victory in their second round. Looking at the women's draw, Coco Gauff also advanced to the third round with a 6-3 and 7-5 win over Jody Barrett to extend her winning streak to 9 games, and Naomi Osaka beat Karolina Muchova 1-6, 6-1 and 6-3 to reach the third round of the Australian Open today. In rugby, the Crusaders have appointed a back as their captain for the first time in the franchise's 30-year history. Midfielder David Havili replaces All Black skipper Scott Barrett in the role. Havili has made 128 appearances for the Crusaders since his 2015 debut and was named vice-captain back in 2020 and has long been part of their leadership group. In football, Sekhukhune United defender Daniel Cardoso says that he has every reason to believe that the club can improve on last season following their recruitment. Babina Nogu, who have gained again strengthened coach Lehlono Losiema's team with some high-profile names, ended the 2023-24 campaign in 5th place, and Cardoso is quite optimistic about the remaining 6 months of the season.
No, I think we're still on the same path as we were in the beginning of the season, and it's football, you know, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some, and at the moment I think we're grinding and working hard. I think, as you can see, we are picking up now, and hopefully it can remain that way, and we take it until the rest of the season.
Well then, the North London derby takes centre stage today with Arsenal hosting at Tottenham Hotspur. And in terms of the team news, Arsenal forward Gabriel Jesus will have an operation on his left knee after sustaining an ACL injury. And Ricardo Calafiori is a doubt because of a muscular injury that caused him to miss that match, while Ethan Bukayo Saka and Ben White, they remain out. Meanwhile, Tottenham forward Timo Werner is expected to miss today's derby with a hamstring injury that he suffered against Tamworth. Elsewhere, Aston Villa have announced the signing of forward Daniel Malen from Borussia Dortmund. The 25-year-old moves to the Premier League for a fee of around 23 million euros, which is around 438 million rand, plus 3 million euros in add-ons. The former Arsenal player scored 13 goals for Dortmund in a Bundesliga last season, and he helped the German team reach the Champions League final. He actually played for Arsenal's youth side. And ending things off with athletics, Hollywood Athletics Club manager Manfred Sedler says that Irvette van Zyl has been listed as one of the elite female runners for the upcoming Comrades, which is taking place on the 8th of June. Now, Van Zyl is set to make her debut in the 89-kilometer down run from Pietermaritzburg to Durban, and Sedler says that the 37-year-old is channeling her energy into rigorous preparation for the big day.
Giving you a bit of an exclusive here, Irvette will be making her debut at Comrades, and we've discussed this and said, look, you know, there's no expectations. Her big focus is to Oceans. And, you know, if she goes and has a smashing debut in Comrades, fantastic. If she doesn't, it's not a train smash. Yeah, we'll see how she goes. But
right, with that said, it is a wrap from my side. I'll have more in the next hour.
Well, Holly, before you go, so Novak Djokovic back in action. I go back to the previous eras of, Bjorn Borg and Jimmy Connors and John McEnroe. But now, at the moment, it's you've had Federer and you've had Nadal, and suddenly it seems like that the guy who came third is actually number one.
Literally.
So how good is it? I mean, compared to the other two?
I mean, you look at the accomplishments. He's sitting on 24 titles, Grand Slam titles, looking for a 25th one to just go over Margaret Court. He's accomplished a gold medal at the Olympics, something that Federer has not done. Remember, at one stage, I think he was number one for 428 weeks, which was more than Federer and Roger at one stage. The list goes on and on. So one could say, and listen, for me personally, Roger Federer is my greatest of all. But just looking at Novak Djokovic's accomplishments, you can't say.
So to
either
confirm,
way.
Federer is the person you admire the most.
Yeah.
But statistically,
yes,
Novak Djokovic's exploits and achievements puts him where? Above Federer and Nadal? And
Yes.
would you say greatest ever, or what?
I feel like he's on his way to being the greatest ever.
What does he have to do to become the greatest ever?
Listen, if he wins this Australian Open, I would say he's almost there.
He's almost there. Well, let's see if he gets there. Perfect. Let's have more of that debate. Novak Djokovic. By the way, any thoughts on that? Novak Djokovic, Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, just in the last few years, 10 years era. Where do they fit in the pecking order according to you? And if you then want to go back and rewind to say the greatest, when we talk boxing, we say like Muhammad Ali, the greatest boxer of all time. Never mind, he spent so many years in prison as well, right? Would that be the equivalent in tennis if we go back in the past to say who's like the absolute number one of all time? Right, more sport in an hour.
My business is very stressful. Construction and plumbing, anything can go wrong. The reason I chose OUTsurance because they align with my vision with regards to customer service. The fact that they won the award for best business insurance makes me feel like I'm in the right hands.
Switch to Business OUTsurance today and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. SMS quote to 43328. That's quote to 43328 to switch and save today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll get a fantastic price for your car. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
Happy New Year, South Africa! SAFM wishes you a prosperous and joyful 2025. As we step into a new year of possibilities, we're here, leading the conversations that move us. Thank you for being part of the SAFM family. Here's to making 2025 a year to remember. Together, SAFM, leading the conversations that move us in 2025. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, we should be talking to Sibonisa Duma, the MEC for Transport and Human Settlements in the KwaZulu-Natal province, and that in relation to their inspection of scholar transport here on the first day back at school. Okay, we should be connecting hopefully shortly, but it gives me an opportunity of getting your thoughts. In fact, here's one that says, Ashraf, I think you missed the point with the minister. It's not the exam that's important, it's the quality of the teaching and the number in the class. Charles, from Charles, I think you've missed the point. We've specifically spoke to him about a particular brief. And the brief is, there's 50 things that we can discuss with education. In fact, I pronounced on it even yesterday. But in terms of this, there's a specific proposal that he has made. And the proposal is to write one exam, whether it's private schools or state schools. And he believes that's an important point in terms of equalizing inequality. And it is on that basis that we talk to him about that. Yes, there's 50 other things that's wrong, and we can pick up on that. So I'm just making the point. That was the brief and the basis of that conversation. Right, your thoughts, Lou in Durban. Go for it. Hi. You're live on the air. What's your point?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. My point, Ashraf, is to support the Premier. Kudos to him. He's taking the bull by its horn. That is what he wanted. And that is what Mandela wanted, because all of us during the 1984s, we were all singing, hey, Mandela, Mandela. Now this is the time the guy is implementing the very same vision that Mandela had, So I'm failing to understand now these current people who are criticizing him. What for?
Okay, so you think he's got a valid point, and practically can that play out? One thing is an opinion, but the practicalities of it all.
Kashraf, if we all committed to make sure that this thing works, it will work. With all the challenges we are facing, all of us together, Ashraf, if we really want our children to be equal among themselves, then most definitely it will work. There's no excuse to say whether there's quality this, it's just a mere excuse, which is neither here nor there at the end of the day.
Okay, I think your point is very interesting. If we, Mlud, thanks for that, because I think it's an important point to say. If we really want us to be equal, then what are we going to do to shift to make equality? And I think nobody, not even the minister, and certainly not me or anybody else, is suggesting equal means dumbing down standards. Not at all. Right, but if we can get, in fact, he suggested in the conversation that if the IEB exam is tougher and that produces better quality and means more people get work, well then so be it. That's what he said. Now there's a second issue, which is something I asked him about. I'm not expecting answers today, which is still far too many people who have graduated are not getting jobs. That's another whole conversation. So I think the point is well made. Billy in Sekhukhune, go for it, Billy.
Well, Ashred.
Yep.
The constitution says that private property will remain private. I think that's where they must start. They must not come here and tell us that this is what we should do. Let them start with the constitution, and then we know that on what basis are we going to integrate the private schools and the public schools. Their own children are going to the same private schools, and they take the same money that they're supposed to develop the public schools, use it in the private education. We pay them. They go and pay in private schools. All of them, all of the government officials, even the teachers, to the level of a teacher, does not take their own children to the schools which they are being paid to work at. Then they take that money to the public to invest it in the private education. The other issue is one. Even if they can integrate the public and the private schools, there will be no difference. Because once they are there, we know what's going to happen.
What is going to happen?
They will overrule every principle of quality. It's what they're doing.
No, I think to be fair, listen, there's a lot that I'm critical of with government, okay? There's so much. I mean, I even said so yesterday. But to think that, for example, Umalusi, who oversees the processes, are compromised, I think would be wrong. And I don't think that's the case. The same like with the IEC regarding
Why is it happening in the public schools? Why is it happening here?
No, but you're saying to overrule a principle where they would actually, change the results? Is that what you're saying?
Why is it happening where we are now? Why is there no quality where they are working now?
No, I'm not talking about
them.
I'm not talking about. I'm talking of the quality of an exam, because that's what we're referring to specifically. Not so much facilities. Facilities are compromised hopelessly. We know that, Billy. Absolutely, yes. I agree with you completely. I mean, there's 1,000 examples of what's wrong in South Africa, and I use this phrase often. When do you know we fully transformed? I say when a township looks like a suburb. It just doesn't do that at the moment. Billy, thanks for that call. Let's get another comment. We go to Mozambique now. AK in Pretoria, go for it.
Yeah, Ashraf, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Right, what's your point?
Yeah, Ashraf, I'm really very disappointed with what has been happening in Mozambique, because you see, there was the inauguration with the absence of Venancio Mondlane. And it does not augur well for the country, because it might soon disintegrate into chaos. So, yes, I'm really not happy. But I think what Daniel Chapo should do, he should try to invite the main opposition leader for a dialogue, so that there should be peace and tranquility. Yeah, that's the way I look at it.
Well, let's see what comes out. As you said, there's been an opposition boycott. So just how valid is that election, and what happens, or the inauguration, and what happens next? Okay, thanks for that. Yeah. Right, there's more comments. Let's get some of your WhatsApps too.
Hi, Ashraf.
In terms of quality education, I don't think it's just in the classroom. I think we should worry about our kids that's at across the river, has to walk distance to school, and the rural areas. All that has to be brought into equality. That before we have quality education and make all one, you're still going to get the majority of the people far behind. So we need linear transport, we need good roads, we need bridges over the rivers, and we don't need trees to be school classrooms. We need proper sanitary for toilets where kids can use. We need all that to come into par. Then we talk about quality education.
Well, I hear you. Look, in many ways we agree that you need all of those things and they must happen, but it doesn't mean you can't put on the agenda the need for what I call equal education. You can put that on the agenda right now and then work towards it. The fact that it hasn't happened with regard to resources, I think is a shocking indictment on South Africa's leadership for the last 30 years. I mean, all the things you've just mentioned, you're just spot on. There's just been so much that's been wrong.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, this guy, Panyaza Lesofi, is a disaster in education system of South Africa. If people don't wake up, our education system will be the weakest. First of all, this guy has proposed what you call a centralization of what you call a registration of children. What happened? Now a child cannot attend a school next to their home. They get accepted to the school kilometers away because of the stupid idea of that guy called Panyaza Lesofi. Next, he came with the Bella Act, the same Bella Act that make access for the undocumented migrant. But we South Africans, we have to produce many things in order to be accepted. Now this guy wants nothing but a very bad education system in South Africa. I think this guy needs to be dealt with very fast because he's stupid.
My goodness, he's stupid. Well, you see, this is the National Pulse. And of course, I want to disagree with some of the language you use, but you're entitled to an opinion. In terms of the Bala Act, he's not the only architect. I mean, he's not even the Minister of Education. That's just to put the point through, right? In fact, we have a Minister of Education who comes from what would seemingly be in the past an opposition party. There's a lot that's happening in the country. We need to be clear about who makes the actual decisions.
Are you looking for the best spectacle and sunglass deal? At Specsavers, get a free pair of branded prescription sunglasses up to 3,200 Rand. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
Abafana West 10 and the Rockets are both looking for a decent spot in the top half. They are all confident they will walk away from the battlefield with jubilance. This is the Betway Premiership. Catch the great passion and drama of Mzansi's beautiful game. Golden Arrows FC takes on TS Galaxy FC on Saturday, 18 January, live on SABC 1 at 2:30 p.m. and SABC radio stations at 3:30 p.m. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply. Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
We're going to talk later on, talking about inequality. There's the Bishop Lavis Action Community protest. They're protesting around issues of teacher posts being cut in the Western Cape. We'll talk about that after 4 o'clock. Do not miss that, right? But let's get to the issue, and I'll take more calls as well as soon as I can. Love the audience engagement. Let's get to the issue of KwaZulu-Natal. So back to school. Now, here's a story that's really disturbing. The Department of Transport in KwaZulu-Natal, they inspected 245 buses, taxis and minibuses that provide this very important scholar transport to the province here, particularly now on day one. Now what they found was that 47 buses, listen to that, 47 buses were found to be unroadworthy. And as a result of that, they were immediately, prohibited from transporting these learners. They were basically taken off the road. What does all that mean? What are the implications? Siboniso Duma, the MEC for Transport and Human Settlements in the KwaZulu-Natal region. Appreciate your time, MEC. Thanks for joining us.
Compliment of the new season, Baba Kada. Let me greet your good listeners at home as well.
Much appreciated.
Yes.
So it's greetings for the season, but in many ways, from a schooling point of view, it's starting on the back foot. Those numbers, 47 buses unroadworthy, that's a huge number, isn't it?
In fact, you'll be shocked, Akhraf, if you could just understand the process that if I'm in the roadblock, let me give you a sample. Like, for instance, if I could stop 100 vehicles, you will find that even from a face value, out of those 100, probably 35 will not be fit. You might find that there's an oil leak, the braking system is not strong, probably there's a big crack window in the process, or it might be cranked. So those are the oil because we must be tedious with this process. Remember that we carry on a day-to-day basis 77,850 people daily, and we are visiting or we're doing 433 schools. It means that our processes must be thorough, and remember, we're dealing with the future of the country. So those 47, I don't think it's a bad number in terms of us, because we are thorough. You'll find that in some instances there might be even a new bus, but it's got a factory fault. We take no prisoners, we just fail it there and then. But fortunately enough, the resources will still be adequate for the kids to go to school.
Well, I mean, I think the fact that you've instituted checks and balances and therefore had 47 buses or cars grounded, I think that's important, because you don't want to have a situation where, cars or motor cars that are unsafe are on the road carrying anybody, notwithstanding even our children going to school. So well done to that, right? What are the implications now? Meaning that who are the owners of these, cars and buses, and the fact that they've been grounded now, what then happen next? Because I would think they have a problem, but also the learners who would have gone to school have a problem.
Like for instance, Ashraf, you might find that if Ashraf is a service provider who will be doing, say for instance, in eThekwini, you say that you have 25 buses. When we give you a contract with 25 buses, instantly you might have 4 buses that are on standby, that are fit to be used exactly like the buses that you have, so that if you fail 2 buses, you're able to take from these 2, then you still have 2. So at this point in time, it means that today the process started, but out of those vehicles or those buses must straight take back to the depots, back to the dealers, so that every details of ensuring that the service is done properly. And because before they start or come back in the process, we are still going to invigilate or inspect those buses, scrutinize the entire processes. It's what we want to do. I'm sure even in December, that we're too visible, whether you're coming from the north or the south in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. The issue of zero tolerance is what is applicable. Unfortunately, even those that are not coming from government, privately owned vehicles, as long as you commute people, we must inspect, we must invigilate before we give you the paper that is called your permit, the CRO, and all those things. So it is our duty, we are duty bound, so that we live a proper life and coordination in terms of avoiding fatalities that are unnecessarily and reckless.
Well, I mean, I would say again, well done that you guys have done what you've done. Often we are critical of administrators and leadership, and this is a good example of getting it right, even though it's going to cause a bit of inconvenience anyway, right? So, having said that, was there inconvenience today? What happened then to the learners who would plan to go to school with these buses or taxis or cars?
As I've already highlighted, that there is no inconvenience in the processes. Those 47 buses, there is no one that is not going to go to school because those buses. So it means that already there are more. That is why I was just giving.
You made the point about the standby buses. Okay, got that. Okay.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Just lastly on this issue, the importance then, not just today and tomorrow, but not just the quality of the buses or the taxis, but to also ensure that these drivers actually obey the rules of the road. I mean, we come from a country, sadly so, it's just rampant disobedience, and it's wrong if you're on your own, but it's doubly wrong when you're carrying cargo because you are putting other people's lives at risk, right? How much of that comes into the mindset in terms of what that you address?
In fact, we have taken an extra precautions. We are doing what is called beyond call of duty now. Almost all the vehicles that are commuting our people, must install a camera or a gadget that is going to tell us in terms of the speed, the radius that it does cover, or what it was, the speed and all those things. So we want to monitor almost all those processes because you can't afford of an accident that is a man-made, that could be stopped. It was not done on time. So fortunately, the technology is here for us. In the future, Ashraf, we want to see a process where the entire year you are able to monitor the buses, you are able to scrutinize randomly, stopping all those that are not roadworthy, so that every people will know that for me, if I don't comply, if I don't adhere with the rules of the road, then I don't qualify. Because the drivers, before you drive a commuting vehicle or passenger vehicle, you must have a PTP. In Germany, for you to have a driver's license, you must be scrutinized for the next 6 months. You write a proper exam before you do that. So it must not be an easy exercise, as you've already highlighted.
Well, I'm glad to hear all of that. I think thumbs up. Across the board, absolutely. That's what we all want to hear. Siboniso Duma, the MEC for Transport and Human Settlements in the KwaZulu-Natal province. Thanks for your time. Let's get the news now. It's 4 o'clock.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories at 4. Ghana speaks on the merger with Action SA, and one person killed in a car crash in the Eastern Cape. For SFM News, I am Onda Lambana, and a very good afternoon. Newly appointed Action SA Deputy President Mbahare Kekana says the party's key focus in the 2026 local government elections is to win many municipalities with an outright majority. Kekana will remain the leader for the Forum for Service Delivery until all their structures are amalgamated into Action SA after the 2026 local government elections. The Forum, which has merged with Action SA, currently has 38 councillors across 5 provinces. Kekana says that Action SA will also recruit credible leaders across all spheres to build the Action SA Green Umbrella.
However, by combining our capacities and leadership expertise and experience with Action SA, we believed that our shared values and aspirations will propel us further in doing our part to fix South Africa. We want to start in 1 year, 6 months from now. We want to start in 2026 and then go for national elections. So in 2026, we are looking to take a lot of municipality outright, not this thing of coalition. We need to have municipality under the umbrella of Action SA.
The 29-year-old man arrested for allegedly killing a 14-month-old baby has escaped from Tsilizini Hospital outside Thohoyandou in Limpopo. He was admitted to hospital after he attempted to commit suicide in the holding cell at the Thohoyandou police station on Monday. The suspect allegedly strangled the baby to death and kidnapped the baby's mother 2 weeks ago. Michael Makungo reports.
Police say the suspect escaped yesterday before being taken to court. He was due to appear in the Thohoyandou Magistrate Court. His case was postponed to Tuesday next week. Police spokesperson Volizani Dati says it is not yet clear how the suspect managed to escape as they're still busy investigating. Michael Makungo, SABC, Polokwane.
One person has died and 11 others have been injured in a head-on collision between 2 vehicles and Highgate in East London in the Eastern Cape. Transport MEC spokesperson Makaya Komisa says the injured passengers have been taken to hospital and a case of culpable homicide has been opened.
Many accidents could have been avoided if motorists obeyed the rules of the road. Transport and Community Safety MEC Xolile Nqatha has expressed his heartfelt condolences to the grieving family and has wished a swift recovery to those injured. The MEC urges all motorists to drive cautiously at all times, as most accidents in the province are caused by human behavior.
Gauteng Education MEC Matume Chilwane says 325,000 learners have been placed for grade 1 and 8 for this year. Hundreds of parents and guardians continue to queue outside the Education Department's district office across the province in a last-minute move to have their children placed. Schools opened for the 2025 academic year this morning. Chilwane has assured parents that they are working to place more learners.
We're liaising with the parents, talking to them that where we're placing their children is actually we're going to invest and they will get an outcome, a good quality education irrespective of where. Fortunately, we just had an matric announcement and one of our best schools, in fact the best school in our province is a township school. Lufere, 100% pass rate, 97% bachelor pass. It's better than all those Model C schools that they want in suburbs. So
Syria's new authorities have detained an Egyptian militant who fought against Bashar al-Assad's rule over threats he made to the government in Cairo. The move could help ease concern in Cairo over the rise to power of the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham rebels who led the overthrow of Assad last month. This comes in light of the Egyptian government's crackdown on the Muslim Brotherhood. Ahmed al-Sisi would meet the same fate as Assad. Recapping the top story, newly appointed Action SA Deputy President Mbare Kekane says the party's key focus in the 2026 local government elections is to win many municipalities with an outright majority. I am Ondolambana for SFM News. The headlines at 4:30.
And coming up in your sports this hour, high price tag for Shalulile and Rushwell's Mine not worried by SA long jump decline. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound slow moving towards Boyson's exit, the N3 northbound in Bedfordview queuing on the link to the N12 east at Kilolese interchange, and the N1 northbound in Midrand has a crash reported near New Road. In KZN, the N3 westbound, the stationary truck near Mlaus Road, the N2 southbound, a stationary truck after Umgeni Road, the N3 westbound queuing towards Spaghetti Junction, and on the N3, track crash recovery underway involving an overturned large abnormal load truck near Van Reenen's village, causing traffic being stacked. In Cape Town, the R300 northbound in Stellenbosch, slow moving towards Port Lorraine Road, Main Road is slow moving through Muizenberg, and Victoria Road slow moving through Camps Bay. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
I feel great, I feel nice. Kasho, what's the score? We're coiling on the highest, the summer level. What's the score? It's the Nandi sessions with Mr. Showdem. It's the fa of live music. It's the go on SABC Plus. Catch the JR Feel Good sessions at 6 Fridays only on SABC 1. Mzansi for sure.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
So much conversation about the...
You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So much conversation about the Premier of Gauteng, Panyaza Lesufi's proposal that when it comes to... It's not saying scrap... private schools and have just public schools. No, we're saying actually you have both. They have the same curriculum, but it's about time that they actually write the same exam, because when they get into universities, the same, assuming they go to the same university, they will then have the same lecturers and the same exam. And this would be a move towards eliminating the sense of inequality we have. Now, clearly, that's one aspect. Before you may jump in, I mean, I can think of 100 factors that will not change because of that. I mean, the physical state of the classrooms, the teacher-learner ratios, the amount of money that the teachers get paid at private schools, the location, the ambiance generally. I can just think of so many things. But this is just one aspect. But does he have a point? We're talking about strictly on the issue of the exam, the actual exam. And of course, many people, some concur and others don't. Here's one person who agrees.
Good afternoon, SAFM and the fellow listeners. You know, as much as I don't like the ANC because now they are ruining the country, they are running a poverty system. But when it comes to Panyaza Lesufi and education, at least he's level-headed. What he's talking about, really, I totally agree with him. Because now, why segregate this grade 12 exam? And from my experience, these IEB students in the university space, in a tertiary level, they are struggling. They are really struggling because they are so used to, things being done for them. And those who are coming from the government school and the public schools, they are doing way better because they know how to go and fend for themselves. So to me, they should be writing the same exam. Why continue this inequality?
Well, I don't know about way better, but I understand that sometimes when you come through adversity, you're better equipped to cope with almost the solo learning format that takes place at universities. When you get pampered too often, you sometimes can't then replicate that at varsity, and that causes other problems as well.
Ashraf, Chengele here from Cape Town. It's a disaster. Those government schools, their passing rate is 33%. So what they wish for is a pie in the sky.
What they wish for is a pie in the sky. I mean, the discussion we had yesterday, and by the way, just so on the 30%, it's not 30% for every single subject. I'm not defending it. I mean, I just think 30% is ridiculous, but it's just to confirm it's not for every single subject, okay? It's like 3 subjects, 30%, 3, 40%. To be able to pass, that you have to pass. But then overall, you need to get that number. But then to get to a bachelor's degree, you need to get higher. And then, of course, whether you get accepted. So you and I know that even if you pass all the subjects and you actually pass and you got a bachelor's degree, that does not mean that you will actually get into a university of your choice to study something of your choice. The fact is, posts are finite. And there are many people who have to fall by the wayside and they have to make other choices and compromises. They just don't get in. And then finally, those that finally get in and they study and they graduate, many of them don't get jobs. So can you see the cycle? It does sound very complicated, doesn't it? Okay, we should be talking about inequality. Bishop Labour's Action Community, they are protesting against teacher cuts. We should be chatting to them pretty shortly. It's a very, very important issue. But let's just continue with some of your thoughts. Panyaza is living in a fantasy. He must start by closing the unequal gap between South Africans first. He's not going to achieve that like any other he has promised. Okay, that's another comment. Right, let's do this, and there's more on the curriculum.
Good evening, Ashraf. Mcete here in Kala. Yes, Ashraf, our education curriculum are not relevant. Ashraf, is this education economically viable for the South Africans? Or is it just a narrative education? Look, they are basing it on science and maths. How many doctors are out there unemployed? Where are the technical schools where handwork will be done? We used to be in this South Africa before 1994. The boys in schools were having the gardening periods where they go out of the garden to work practically the soil. There used to be needleworks in schools where girls were taught how to make clothing. Where are those things? Everything now is made in China. Oh, Ashraf.
Everything is made in China. Okay. I mean, there's no question that to a large degree what has happened regarding our open policy about importing of goods, it has definitely destroyed the textile industry in this country. I mean, there's no question about that. It has, right? And therefore manufacturing too. Okay, we should be chatting to Amanda Davids from the Bishop Labour's Action Community. She's the media liaison officer there. If you know her, just tell her, hey, come on, answer your phone because we need to talk to her. It's really important. But let's move on to other issues. We'll chat later on about the African School of Governance that's been launched with the support of the President of Rwanda as well as Ethiopia. That comes up later. But on the political front, there's a significant change, I suppose, acquisition. In that regards, Action SA, they now are merging with another political party called Forum for Service Delivery. Michael Beaumont is with me, the Action SA National Chairperson. Michael, appreciate you connecting with us on the National Pulse.
Thank you, Ashraf. It's always good to be speaking about positive development.
Well, is it positive? Tell me why.
Well, I think we need to understand that the South African people are feeling somewhat politically left behind by a GNU government that appears to be incapable of producing reforms and a progressive caucus that is anything but that. At the end of the day, a political alternative is going to be required in this country, but voters are subjected to ballot papers that are comically long, with letters and various arrays that are very confusing. And what Action SA started today, and I must stress, this is the start of more things to come rather than the end of the road itself, is a process of assimilating the opposition together to strengthen the rational centre of South African politics that has been abandoned for a long time.
Okay, so that's interesting, and I mean, just to digress for a moment, interestingly enough, that is effectively what the MK party is saying about what they call the Progressive Caucus or Progressive Alliance, about speaking to all these different parties that are like-minded. I'm not saying that you're included in that, but I get your point about trying to do the same thing. Why do you think that's so important now, to effectively identify like-minded political parties like yourself and get together and form, whether it's mergers or types of alliances outside the two obvious ones that we have at the moment, which is the GNU alliance and the seemingly growing alliance within the MK party?
Well, I think we need to understand that the 29th of May last year has produced a GNU which now includes 70% of the South African Parliament, which is massively concerning, because if we've seen power corrupt, well, then that kind of power has the risk of corrupting most absolutely. From our point of view, as with the laws of gravity, for every action there needs to be an equal but opposite reaction. And if we are going to hold government to account, and if we are going to present credible alternatives to voters who I think increasingly are realizing that this GNU is basically just implementing ANC policy, then we need to develop a much stronger rational centre in South Africa, and that's the work that we began today. I think there's a lot of political parties out there that generally agree on a broad set of values, and the reason they don't work together is more because of their own interests and not the interest of South Africans. That is what we would like to turn around in this process.
Okay, therefore tell me then about this merger with this party that, many may say, but we don't know too much about this particular party that talks about service delivery.
Yeah, well, I think that's the point. I mean, a lot of people are looking to political parties in Parliament for this process going forward, and they're not wrong. We are involved in engagements with those parties as well. But one must remember, this is a local government election that we are moving towards. And some of those political parties don't have a single councillor. The Forum for Service Delivery have 38 councillors in 5 provinces, including a mayor, MMCs, and various other individuals. And they have a vote base of 81,000 votes in the last election. And all of this was accumulated over 10 years with zero financial resources. So from our point of view, this is a capability that we need to bring into Action SA to strengthen our ability to grow structures, particularly outside of urban centres where they have proven effective in doing so.
Of the type of policies that the two parties have, I mean, how much of it are similarities and are there points of divergence?
No, there's absolute similarities. As a matter of fact, when the Forum for Service Delivery approached Action SA in September last year to begin these engagements, it was very quickly established that policy is not going to be the challenge in these discussions. In many ways, this is an organization that shares our commitment to the rule of law, has an absolute hatred for the issue of service delivery, is strong on the idea, absolute hatred for corruption. Their brand is entirely around local government service delivery, which is the focus of what they do. They actually have a motto that says 80% delivery and 20% politics, which, we deeply admire. But at the same time, this is an organization that has recognized that it needs to work with other political parties to be effective, and credit for them for coming forward.
Okay. This, I understand, also means there's a change in terms of the political leadership of Action SA as we know it.
Well, absolutely. We've established the position of Deputy President, into which we have accommodated the President of this organization, Dr. Kekana. He is a highly qualified and ethical leader with a strong track record, so we will benefit greatly from his leadership in Action SA. But it's hugely important that when we go through this process, we don't approach this with the arrogance that some of the more established political parties have demonstrated and have caused instability as a result. because we need agreements like this where political parties all compromise a little and they all gain a little. So that in the process you have a stable arrangement going forward and one more capable of benefiting South Africans than in falling apart.
And in terms of the brand, I mean, is it still Action SA or is an addition to that?
Absolutely. The political party on the ballot paper in 2026 will be Action SA. The logo remains the same. All of those elements remain the same. Really what we're doing is incorporating this organization into the Action SA brand and benefiting from their perspectives along the way.
Okay, let's move forward in terms of that next election. So you need to get your work done very, very quickly to be able to have some, well, will be formidable in terms of at the ballot sheet, right? What's the next plan? I mean, who are the other parties that you've identified that you see as similarities with you, and what are they telling you?
Well, certainly we're involved in an engagement with a number of political parties in the National Parliament who aren't part of this GNU and aren't part of this Progressive Caucus. It's very early days, Ashraf. It's important to say that we're at a phase of exploration, so I wouldn't want to comment on who they are just yet or when this may be concluded. But what I will say is it's promising in as much as there clearly is a political will. There's an understanding that South Africans need us to put differences aside in their interests, and there have been really positive discussions that we believe could well lead to further agreements in the near future. I think it's also important to say, Ashraf, that with the Municipal Structures Amendment Bill currently in public consultation that will impose a 1% threshold on the next local government election, there are a great deal of community organizations and ratepayers associations, all of whom have local footprints in individual municipalities, who won't gain representation unless they partner with organizations like us. And this is going to be the focus of our efforts going forward.
Okay, and therefore, if I understand you, that you would see a hybrid where they would actually vote for that particular party, which is not your party, but there would be an understanding a vote for that party, however small or large, would effectively be a vote for this umbrella party that will be under Action SA. Is that how I see it?
No, we're going to look at a variety of models for what it's worth. And I think from an Action SA standpoint, we remain still deeply psychologically scarred from the multi-party charter, which, you know, there's been a lot of learnings around. And ultimately, we remain convinced that the answer is a single political party on the ballot paper that doesn't confuse the South African people in terms of what it is and what its intentions are. And we need to focus on how we serve South Africans rather than coming up with convoluted schemes around how these programs should work.
Okay, let's leave it at that. We'll have further chats, I'm sure, about that in the future. Michael Beaumont, the Action SA National Chairperson, reflecting on effectively a merger with a party called the Forum for Service Delivery. So would that be a third force? When has ever heard that phrase, the third force? But it meant something completely different then. It could mean something very different moving forward into the next local election.
After a 0-0 draw at Orlando in December, the Northern and Southern African Giants meet again. The Red Devils want to create a happy mood for their fans, but the Buccaneers want to destroy the Pyramids by collecting maximum points. This is the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Witness the incredible flavor of African football. Al Ahly Sporting Club versus Orlando Pirates FC on Saturday, 18 January at 6 p.m. live on SABC2. Also available everywhere, for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The SAFM Playwriting Competition is closing on the 3rd of February 2025. Explore the theatre of the mind and write your 60-minute radio drama play and email it before 5 p.m. on the 3rd of February 2025. Late submissions will not be accepted. For further information about the competition, visit safm.co.za or send an email to drama@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Happy New Year, South Africa! SAFM wishes you a prosperous and joyful 2025. As we step into a new year of possibilities, we're here, leading the conversations that move us. Thank you for being part of the SAFM family. Here's to making 2025 a year to remember. Together, SAFM, leading the conversations that move us in 2025. Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Right, we will take further calls later on just to tell you about some of the tweaks we've done with the show as we get into this new year. So unless things change sometimes because of guests, dropping at a certain moment, in general, around 10 to the hour every day, 10 to 4, 10 to 5, 10 to 6, we'll have a 10-minute runway of, audience engagement. It could be calls, it could be WhatsApps, it could be you tweeting as well. All those combinations, we'll try and do that outside of even other times as well. And the plan is that in some way, as much as the interviews are important and they're critical, we must also find a way to best reflect what you're thinking as well, too. So just so that you know that. We'll take your calls later on too. Right. Okay, let's get to the issue that we referred to earlier on regarding the huge concerns around, certainly for the community of Bishop Lavis in the Western Cape, right? I understand that community, they put together what is called the Bishop Lavis Action Community, and their media liaison officer is Amanda Davids, and we're talking to them primarily because of a big issue around teacher cuts, and that means being compromised. So let's get the story. Amanda Davids, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting to the National Pulse.
Thank you so much for allowing us to just hear our grievances. Thank you.
So what is your grievance? What are your grievances?
Okay, so we have the biggest problem for us is the teacher layoff. At the moment, we are having 65 to 1 classes. Now, there's no individual attention. We've already seen now since last year. Last year, we still had pure maths. This year, there's no pure maths, no sciences at all in Bishop Lavis. You have to send your child to a Model C school in order for them to get those subjects. So I think that's one of our biggest grievances.
All right, so number one, it's 65 to 1. I want to get that right. 65 learners to one teacher, or one teacher to 65 learners in a classroom in Bishop Lavis in that community, right? Number two, you're saying if you want to learn pure maths and science, I mean the type of subject that gets you to do high things in that space that we talk about as a country, you cannot do it in the Bishop Lavis community. You have to leave the community. Is that right? To another school elsewhere. Okay. Who do you, I mean, who's explaining what your, I mean, in terms of your problem that you've stated, has there been a response from the relevant education authority in terms of why have you been put into this position?
No. As you know, the only answer we're getting is budget cuts. But as we know, they rediverted funds meant for education and health, as per Alan Windley in the last fiscal year. So they are basically thinking that policing the area is more important than educating the area. So that is the problem that we have at the moment.
So, I mean, in terms of the budget cuts, this would be a Western Cape Education Department issue, right? I hear that. Now, I do know that there's been budget cuts across the nation. We had this big debate last week about the Eastern Cape where medical doctors, qualified medical doctors, can't get jobs because of budget cuts. What I'm saying, I'm not there to defend them, but is that not a reality? It's not a good reality, it's a bad reality, but is that not the reality that if they don't have the money, they can't hire the teachers, which means you are clearly completely compromised?
Yes. Okay, so we do understand budget cuts, and we know it's across the board. But now, what we are asking is, why does it have to come from education? Because I think if you educate the child, keep a child in school and university, and you will create a citizen that will economically, it works for the country economically. But now you are basically saying, because none of our children can go, because the 30% already, the 30% pass rate, what is the child going to do with that? Now you get to matric, there's no work for you. So what do? They are basically making us raise gangsters in our non-Cape Flats, and that is what we're fighting.
All right. In terms of your protests today, I mean, do I take it that the protests have actually gone to like a memorandum, an MOU, a memorandum of complaint, say grievances to the Western Cape Education Department, or national, or both?
Yes, definitely both. Because we thought, I think we're supposed to be in the New South Africa. We have a GNU. So why is it that education is the first thing to go? Find the money. I don't care where you find it, but you need to find it because we need our children to be educated. And we don't only need education, we need quality education.
Do you think they're listening to you when you say, I don't care how they find it, but they must find it? Do you think they're going to listen to you?
As we know, it takes a lot for them to listen, but we will be outside of our schools. We will be on the street until they listen. Because this is one thing that we fought in the 80s, we fought in the 70s. We can fight again. We're still here.
What would be the nature? What would be the nature of your protest? And I take it it'll be ongoing until when?
It will be outside different schools in our area on a daily basis, and we will be taking it to the WCED as well. But we will keep you updated with the plan because we are having another community meeting.
Well, I mean, look, let's say this. You know, we had a chat with Panyaza Lesufi earlier about other issues in education in the country, but the principle of 65 to 1 is a complete reflection of a complete failure. You cannot expect good results at 65 to 1. Then there's no maths and science in that community. Your community is effectively condemned, as you've made the point, to doing certain things only. So here's the last thing before we get to news, Amanda. What is the morale of the learners? What are they feeling?
Unfortunately, we've seen that our learners, it's almost like they're giving up because they know they're not going anywhere. And that is the biggest problem we have as activists in our community, is to get them to care again about their education.
And that's not easy in the light of the 65 to 1 number that you refer to. Appreciate your time, Amanda Davids. We'll certainly keep in touch with you and hope that you have actually better news for yourself and the community of Bishop Lavis pretty soon. Amanda Davids is the Bishop Lavis Action Community's Media Liaison Officer. 65 to 1 in the classroom. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Oh my goodness. Let's get the news headlines. It's for 30 years on Della.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines, a study by the National Minimum Wage Commission has uncovered lack of compliance with South Africa's national minimum wage policy by employers. The national minimum wage was last year set at 27 Rand 58 cents per hour. Parliament says it has enhanced the National Assembly program for this year in an attempt to strengthen its oversight role. The story may offend sensitive listeners, including children. The Judicial Conduct Tribunal, probing sexual harassment allegations against Judge President Selbin Benenge, has heard that the top judge allegedly sent the complainant a picture of his private parts, an allegation he denies. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Hose.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in Melrose has a crash near Colette Drive. The M1 southbound in central Johannesburg queuing towards Crown Interchange. The N12 eastbound in Boksburg has a crash at Atlas Road. The N3 northbound in Bedfordview, a crash reported on the link to the N12 east at Gillies Interchange. And Klukop Road eastbound has delays towards Sierfontein Avenue. In KZN, the N3 westbound, a stationary truck near Mlaws Road. The M7 St. John's Avenue southbound queuing through central Pinetown. The N2 southbound has a stationary truck after Umgeni Road, and the N3 northbound a truck crash recovery involving an overturned large abnormal load truck near Van Renen Village. Traffic moving via contraflow on the southbound carriageway, so expect further delays. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound slow moving towards Hospital Bend. The N1 outbound is slow moving towards Yiptiaga Avenue. Spine Road westbound in Khayelitsha slow moving towards Jafta K. Masimola Road, and Victoria Road is slow moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, Tumi, let's talk about Mamelodi Sundowns.
Well, the 20 Giants have reportedly placed a 75 million rand price tag on striker Peter Shalulile, who has reportedly drawn interest from clubs in the Middle East and North Africa. There's reportedly been an agent from the Middle East that has been engaging Sundowns and is keen to seal a deal favorable to Shalulile than what has been on the table at Kloorkop. The 31-year-old is reportedly pushing for a 3-year contract, and he's into his 5th year with Sundowns, where he has scored 95 goals. In the meantime, over 40,000 tickets have already been sold for the upcoming Soweto derby between Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs. The clash between the two Soweto rivals is set for the 1st of February at 3:30, and fans will also have an option to use a park and ride system for the highly anticipated clash. This initiative aims to address the long-standing issue of traffic congestion experienced during the derby, and also just to expand the public transport options available to attendees. Now, in terms of the location, there would be transport from Monte Casino and Mall of Africa. A ticket is 280. Sandton City and Clearwater, 240 for a ticket, and Gold Reef City, which is around 225, and it's all the way to FNB Stadium, and the last bus that is leaving FNB Stadium is at 6 p.m. Meanwhile, still staying with football, SA Under-17 Women's National Team coach Ntombifuthi Khumalo says that their preparations will be compromised if Gabon fail to honor their 2025 FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup return leg fixture. Bantwana defeated the Central African nation 12-1 in their last weekend's abandoned first leg in Franceville, where the home team was left with only 6 players to play at the start of the second half. The return fixture is scheduled for Saturday at Lucas Muripe Stadium, and Khumalo says that game time is crucial ahead of the next round of qualifiers.
Yeah, it will not be good for us because preparing a team, playing a game help you because it's how players get more tested and see what we have, what we need to fix, what we do good. Then if you're not playing, yeah, sometimes it's not good, but we'll take what will happen.
Meanwhile, in athletics, two-time African long jump champion Rashwell Samai believes that South Africa's decline in the sport is part of a broader global trend in recent years. It has been 8 years since the country has celebrated a major international medal in long jump when Luvo Mayonga claimed gold and Samai secured bronze at the 2017 World Championships. The Commonwealth Games and World Championship bronze medals points out that the standard of long jump has dropped worldwide, with even leading athletes nation facing challenges, but Samai remains optimistic of South Africa's future potential. In tennis, Novak Djokovic has found himself in the record books again, this time for the most Grand Slam matches played in tennis history by reaching 430, going past Roger Federer. He claimed a 6-1, 6-3 and 6-2 win over Jemai Ferreira to advance to the third round. Meanwhile, 19-year-old Jakub Mensik stunned Casper Ruud in a 6-2, 3-6, 6-1 and 6-1 win to book his spot in the Australian Open third round, with Alexandra Zverev also advancing to the third round, beating Pedro Martinez 6-1, 6-4 and 6-1. In the women's side of things, Coco Gauff and Naomi Osaka are also through to the third round of the competition.
That's it?
That's it.
Did you have a look at that Premier League greats? There's like a Premier Soccer League in England. They've put together like a whole list of, I don't know, 10 of the top 10 greatest footballers who have played in the Premier League only, so 92 onwards. Did you check it out? If not, we'll check it out later on.
Yeah.
I wonder who's number one. I just wonder. But somebody's going to say, well, we know. You can tell me if you think it is. Right, more sport in an hour.
Owning a small or medium-sized business takes courage, skill, and determination. The Clientele Legal Business Plan is there to protect, guide, and assist your business in managing the legal risks. Let us handle your labor matters, employment contracts, CCMA referrals, and so much more. Our team of professional lawyers are standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 42770. That's SAFM to 42770. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
VfB Stuttgart are strategizing on how to secure a dignified top half position, while RB Leipzig are aware of how crucial victory will be for them to rise higher. This is the Bundesliga, football as it's meant to be. Catch VfB Stuttgart versus RB Leipzig on Wednesday, 15 January at 9:30 p.m. live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, to the markets we go with Makwe Masilela, who's the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Good to connect as always, Makwe. You've got local and global markets in a moment. Let's start with results from the Karoo's quarterlies, right?
Yeah, quarterlies, and very impressive afternoon to you and to the listeners. Remember, these guys, they own Cartrack, and most of their revenue comes from Cartrack itself, and companies strongly positioned for growth. The guys, they operate in a growing and largely under-penetrated market with strong demand from customers needing to be competitive. Revenue up 9%, operating profit up 18%, and earnings per share up a whopping 21%. And market participants have started the session looking forward to U.S. inflation data. And guys were worried that a sticky print will reinforce expectations for an extended pause when it comes to interest rate cuts. Remember, yesterday their producer inflation came in lighter than expected, while waiting the UK inflation came out cooler than expected, leading their borrowing cost to fall. And locally, our Presidential Economic Advisory Council told Mr. President nothing new when they urged the government to position South Africa on a path of rapid economic growth, and that is due to the changing global environment, stressing the importance of technological changes or advances when it comes to AI and of confronting climate change. And when released, the U.S. consumer price rose by less than expected, which was a relief after months of elevated readings. And stocks also got a boost from better than expected U.S. banks' quarterly earnings, extending gains with the GSE up 1.6% led by our resources. And oil prices are higher, focusing on potential supply disruptions from sanctions on Russian tankers, though gains were tempered by a lack of clarity on their impact. And Brent crude is up 1% at $80 a barrel, and gold firmed as the dollar and yields fall after that U.S. inflation data. Gold is up 0.4% at 2,688, but platinum is flat at 935, and the rand firmed 0.8% against the U.S. dollar, is now 1876, and it's flat against the pound, 2307, and 1940 against the euro.
Okay, perfect. So we will connect with you tomorrow. So certainly good news for one company organization. Makwe, thanks for that. Another market update coming up in about an hour's time. Right, we're going to we'll take your calls, not quite now, later on, but there's a significant development regarding an investment in African leadership that we'll talk about next.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
Okay, so this is interesting. The president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, together with the former president of Ethiopia and others, have launched what is called the African School of Governance. And the reason around this is that they've put together, well, I think it suggests what it says quite simply, School of Governance, right? The big question is like, what's going to come out of it? Now, I understand that the person who's going to lead it is Professor Kingsley Chiedu Moghalu, who's a renowned Nigerian technocrat. So he'll be the first president and vice chancellor for the school. So what's the story behind it? What's the vision? What's the end goal? Let's find out with Prof. Kingsley Moghalu, the inaugural president, vice chancellor of the African School of Governance. Certainly a great privilege to talk to you, and I think what is a significant moment in the history of African governance per se, but certainly the African continent too, Prof.
Well, thank you. The vision of the African School of Governance is a prosperous, stable Africa led by competent men and women driving the continent's transformation, especially economically. And so that's the end goal. Now, the reason the African School of Governance was established is because there is a sense, or there was a sense, on the part of the co-founders, that there was a deficit of leadership and governance in the continent. And so they thought that it would be appropriate to set up an institution that would provide a pipeline over the next decade and the next generation of a new generation of leaders that can actually tackle Africa's problems and opportunities and make a difference on the ground. There have been a lot of initiatives, a lot of diplomatic conferences, a lot of acronyms and slogans. But the reality on the ground in many African countries, for too many Africans, is not yet what it should be.
Okay, so interesting in terms of some questions. In terms of, first of all, where would it be set up and established? Is it one base, or in a world of online, you could do it on multiple bases? That's one. And then would it be working, if you talk governance, I would think it would imply, as you've suggested, good governance for all the countries of Africa. But does that also put you up against the establishment?
Well, first of all, the programs we will offer will be on site at the university's campus in Kigali, Rwanda. There will also be, and that is the Master of Public Administration, there will also be an online Executive Master of Public Administration. So now you talked about the establishment. I didn't hear you very well, but it's not about the establishment or anti-establishment. It's about creating a critical mass of leaders who, over the years, will percolate into positions of influence and authority and policy making across the continent, and therefore will be able to change the narrative of Africa. The African School of Governance will be run on we will teach on the basis of Africa-specific contexts and with a strong African narrative. And we want to bring up leaders who have not just the knowledge and the skills, but also the mindset of purpose-driven leadership, which we feel is not as much supply in Africa as it should be.
So who would you be looking for in terms of candidates who would be attending these lectures and effectively this leadership course?
Yes, we are looking mainly for mid-career professionals, to apply, people who are already in careers or self-employed, and who have very strong, excellent academic backgrounds, excellent professional backgrounds, and, have exhibited evidently a capacity for leadership, so that we can then mold this type of very, very unique training and education. Those are the kinds of people we're looking at from all the countries of the continent.
What about, maybe it's a good time to ask you about what for you then are the greatest challenges facing the African continent right now? And I'll leave it to you, whether it's 1, 2, 3, if you can just list them.
Well, the first challenge that faces Africa right now is the challenge of stability. Making sure that African countries are stable and secure. That puts a foundation for the next most important problem or challenge, which is to create a broad-based prosperity for Africans. You see, there are too many Africans who are poor still, and the continent's population will be increasing over the next 20, 30 years. So we must now put in place a framework and a system that can actually deliver prosperity with productive economies and skilled and employed young people.
What has been, I think there's an African Leadership Academy based in South Africa. There's also Thabo Mbeki who's been involved in different forms of African leadership. Will there be collaborations with those, schools of governance as well, that pushes for leadership or not?
Well, certainly, the African School of Governance already has a far-reaching strategic partnership with the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy at the National University of Singapore. And we will have similar other partnerships we will have similar partnerships with other academic institutions in the continent and outside the continent.
Okay. All right. Let's leave it at that. I think that the line is progressively cracking up and getting worse, but hopefully the message or the clear line of African leadership has got to be top-notch That must be very, very clear. So thank you for your time, Professor Kingsley Mogale, the inaugural president and the vice-chancellor of the African School of Governance, which will be set up in Rwanda. And there we are, with really a goal for creating and ensuring and sustaining, stability on the African continent, and stability therefore linked to democracy and the type of checks and balances and leadership that we all absolutely covet in all countries of the African continent. Absolutely, that's what we should do. Right, if you have any thoughts on that, I'd like to welcome you to call in 086 000 2032. But that's not all. What for you moves the national pulse today? It's obvious the conversation with Panyaza Lesufi would be one of them, the Premier of Gauteng, but that's not all. As we talk about him talking about a unified examination system, at the same time we talk about inequality, and I think that issue from Bishop Lavis of 65 teachers to 1 starkly is a reminder of just how much is still wrong in our country. How can it ever be acceptable at any level in South African society? And the truth is, as I talk to you about Bishop Lavis, I think you'll be listening and you'll be telling me, Ashraf, you know what? That's Bishop Lavis. I can tell you the same thing about my community. We've got the same problems. The truth is, these problems exist. And for some of us who live in the cities, we may not even see it. But ultimately, who is compromised? Who's compromised has got to be the learners, the citizens, the young people of South Africa that we speak so much about. We say, the youth are our future, or the youth are the present. They are being compromised. How do we turn all of that around? This is the National Pulse.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. The SAFM Playwriting Competition is back. After receiving hundreds of entries last year from South African writers of different ages and ethnic groups sharing their stories, now the time is yours. It's your story. You decide. SAFM invites all writers to explore the medium of sound, the theatre of the mind, and to create a 1-hour radio play in English. Get writing now and submit your play before the 3rd of February 2025 for a chance to win one of 3 large cash prizes. For more information, visit safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
So, make a note of this, right? S3 and Lorna Maseko are about to add flavor to your Wednesday evenings. Lorna invites you on a journey of discovering new ways of transforming South African pantry staples into delectable and budget-friendly meals. This Wednesday, Lorna breathes new life into traditional favorites like fermented sorghum pap and mopani worms and the iconic bunny chow, adding her signature flair to these timeless comfort foods. I think as I mentioned it, you're probably saying, oh my goodness. Yeah, do the most with Lorna's Pantry. Wednesdays, 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Right, let's get to some of your calls. Churchill in Umtata, go for it.
Yeah, thank you, Ashraf. Look, on the issue that is being raised by Panyaza, I don't see it practically possible. Otherwise, it's a good idea. Because of our constitution, which needs to be revisited. And our constitution was founded on the Bill of Rights. Look, in this country, people have got the right to take their kids to the education systems of their own choice, as long as they're going to pay. Same like people have got the right to pay for their health and go to private institutions. Look, you've got our own leadership. They've got the right to go to Russia wherever when they are not healthy. So do you think they're going to allow that? Because it's one of the things that would say, if somebody is heading education, they must take their kids to that public institution. You can't you can't design a menu that you are not going to consume. Otherwise, it's a good idea, but there are many issues. Because he talks about, fighting against inequality, but there are a lot of issues. The issue of land, the issue of means of production that are in the hands of the minority. In order to achieve, to fight against inequality.
Well, I think that part you're right. That's why we're saying it's land, it's education, that we can think of 50 things. Of course, he chose to bring up this issue, and to be fair, he just said it's a proposal that is only put it on the agenda. It's not even an ANC policy, just so. Basically, he's testing the waters, and we're debating it because he's testing the waters. But your point may be valid that, whereas I think, in terms of the curriculum, there's already unanimity on the curriculum, that issue of freedom of choice, as someone has suggested, if you choose, even as a minister, to take your child to a private school, nobody can stop you legally. If you've got the money and you pay them, you can do so. So I understand the contradictions, and the question you're asking is like, in practical terms, you can't impose anything on anybody, but you can impose a curriculum, which is what we have right now. So Churchill, thank you for your time. More comment. Colin in Cape Town. Go for it, Colin.
Hi, Ashraf. The problem is the quality of our teachers also, and schools. If only they build enough schools and have quality teachers, you'll have less pupils or students in the class, 30, 40 at a time instead of 60 and 70 at a time. They've got to concentrate on building more schools and things like that. Now, I heard him talk about the independent schools and the curriculum and so and so. He sort of admitted that the private schools is a bit harder. So he reckons we've got a choice, either ours or theirs. So if theirs, the private school, is much, much better and more advanced, so why has he got a choice? Just go over to what the private schools are doing. Write the same exams.
All right, but Colin, so in fact you're agreeing with him. First of all, he didn't reckon that we have a choice. Actually, he didn't reckon that we have a choice in terms of private schools are better. He's actually saying he's acknowledging that they're better, but he's actually telling you that this is what I'm proposing. So you and him probably agree in a very, very different way. Thanks for that call, Colin. Moss in Kimberley, go ahead. Hi.
Greetings, Ashraf.
Greetings. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but greetings to your listeners. Ashraf, here's a mind problem in South Africa. It's mass destruction. We need to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery in this dimension. What happened is how many graduates now are unemployed, right? How many are going to graduate now, right? What they become thieves and murderers, right? They are getting tired and frustrated. Where ANC is supposed to make this before 1994, right? Free education, equal education, because it's a subjugation of education, health, social, workway, water short, all these kind of, we need architect designers, people who can design new towns, new bridges. We must repair old things. Right? The mindset of our people in South Africa. A house divided against itself will surely fall, because South Africa is separated, divided. How could this? There's a GNU. These people are supposed to say right what Panyaza is saying. It is right what Panyaza says. People must come away from this mental slavery of them. We need a higher quality of education.
Okay, I think. I hear you, Moss. You've made the point, and I hear you absolutely. In fact, we have to be so much more innovative. I posted today, by the way, to say, what is South Africa's USP? What is our unique selling proposition? What's our unique selling point? What is it that makes us globally competitive? And the point that I've suggested is, once we agree on that, which we don't agree on, by the way, but you can have your own thoughts about that. Once we agree, then that's your low-hanging fruit. Everything then needs to be aligned to delivering so that we can exploit our USP globally, because that makes South Africa globally competitive. Part of that, of course, is to be completely innovative in the way we do things in education. And Moss, your point about that it's one thing having education, but if there's so many people unemployed now, even if they're qualified, we are missing the boat seriously, big time. Thanks for that. By the way, we'll be chatting, we'll get another take regarding education and the thoughts of what Panyaza Lesufi said. We'll chat to Mary Metcalf, who's in education, is coming up shortly. But further comments, and the issue of the budget cuts, I think, is really important because it compromises us, doesn't it?
Hi, Ashraf. I just want to say big ups to the community of Bishop Lovis for what they are doing. You know, what is interesting, Ashraf, is that this budget cuts for teachers, if one can actually do a proper analysis, you will see that it's only going to affect the black and colored communities in the Western Cape. If you just go 20 kilometers north towards Barrow North and all of those areas, they are not going to be affected by this. So I really support them for this initiative. Thanks, Ashraf.
All right, got that. Well, listen, I think one thing about budget cuts, it's going to compromise the most vulnerable. That's the truth. DK in Pretoria, go for it.
Ashraf, my comment is that we keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Now, we need to redesign the entire curriculum from the beginning until the end, because what I'm hearing Panyaza proposing is trying to fix symptoms but not the root causes. So therefore, you are literally going to compare apples and bananas if you want to have a singular exam for grade 12. Grade 12 is at the end of the process, but it's not the beginning, and we all know where the problem starts.
Absolutely.
So I was inspired by the minister when she alluded that we need to fix the problem from early childhood level, because only then can you have a 12-year plan at least that will ensure that you get the outcomes that you want. As a country, we really have an indictment because, out of the mathematics competition that was conducted, how do we get to number 59 and be beaten by countries that have lesser resources than us?
I agree with you. It's unthinkable. It's absolutely unthinkable.
It's horrible. Now, what we need to do then is to ask ourselves, why do we keep throwing money at problems? Because we are not thinking. We think that because we've got the fiscus that is correct, that is sufficient, therefore we just put up a budget. But where does this money go? It goes to the wrong places. Now, as long as we've got these young people that are in the millions unemployed every year, then we need to stop and say, what are we not doing right?
Well,
Thank
good
you,
point.
Ashraf.
Perfect. I'll tell you
Thank
what,
you.
the million-dollar question, thanks for that, DK. Seriously, besides education, how do we solve South Africa's unemployment catastrophe? I was going to say problem. That's too mild. Catastrophe.
Good afternoon, Ashraf is here in Cape Town. Ashraf, the course of governance, whatever is said, put in Kigali in Rwanda. But the UN report, you can read the UN report that's saying that Kagame is the one creating chaos in the east of Democratic Republic of Congo. How can you put good governance in African continent where you are number one person who destabilized many African countries? I can say from Burundi, from Tanzania, even from Congo. So how this thing going to happen? That is hypocrisy. What Kagame tried to do, he just tried to portray himself as a great leader, but in deep down, is just like a despot who want to destroy everything that African people are used to do. He's a sellout. Thank you, Tio in Cape Town.
All right, you've certainly echoed your sentiments very, very loudly. He's someone who's been very innovative in getting his country on the map, but yes, many argue that he's authoritative, doesn't sort of allow any dissent. That's within his own country, besides the meddling that you refer to at the neighboring countries. Let's think about that. Perhaps you have further comments when we talk about it, because really it is, what is it that drives the national pulse? You tell me. Let's get the news now. It's 5 o'clock. Here's Greg Hose.
Thank you, Ashraf. Lack of compliance with the minimum wage. A new Mozambican president sworn in. Good day to you. A study by the National Minimum Wage Commission's uncovered lack of compliance with South Africa's national minimum wage policy by employers. The national minimum wage was last year set at 27 Rand 58 cents an hour. The studies found evidence suggested of partial compliance in some cases. This has raised concern as some employers often reduce working hours of their staffers in response. The CEO of the National Employers Association is Gerhard Papenfuss.
An employer compete in the market with good employees. So if you want to keep a good employee, if you want to retain the services of a good employee, you need to compete with others on the basis of wages. But if you can't afford to pay whatever the amount is that the minimum wage prescribed, you're not going to pay that amount. Why not? Well, because you can't afford it. It's as simple as that. Money doesn't fall from the air. There's nothing you can do about it. If I can only afford a lesser amount, I will pay a lesser amount. I can't go anywhere as an employer and say, please give me money to pay my employees more. I can't do it.
The Seventh Parliament plans to tighten its oversight role this year and also wants to improve accountability and transparency in the lawmaking process. Parliament spokesperson Moloto Matapo.
Yeah, one of the priorities of the Seventh Parliament is to deepen transparency, accountability, and of course oversight, and to ensure that the members of the public, the media, are consistently and regularly involved, and they've got a role in the work that Parliament is doing.
The newly appointed Deputy President of Action SA, Mbahari Kekana, says the party's key focus in the 2026 local government elections is to win many municipalities with an outright majority. He'll remain the leader for the Forum for Service Delivery until all their structures are amalgamated into Action SA after the elections.
However, by combining our capacities and leadership expertise and experience with Action SA, we believed that our shared values and aspirations will propel us further in doing our part to fix South Africa. We want to start in 1 year, 6 months from now. We want to start in 2026 and then go for national elections. So in 2026, we are looking to take a lot of municipality outright, not this thing of coalition. We need to have municipality under the umbrella of Action SA.
The following story may offend sensitive listeners, including children. The Judicial Conduct Tribunal, probing sexual harassment allegations against Judge President Selby Mbenenge, has heard that the top judge allegedly sent the complainant a picture of his private parts, an allegation he denies. The tribunal, which currently has the complainant, Andiso Mengu, on the witness stand, is combing through the lengthy WhatsApp messages between the two. Mengu accuses the Judge President of sexual harassment. She testified that she received an image allegedly from the judge.
It was his private part with hair exactly the same color of his hair on his head.
Was it a video? Was it a photo? Can you explain to us what type of message was this?
Picture. It was a picture. And kuyo kuyacaca uba wayeme phezu kwe-cubicle ye-Toby. And in the picture, it was clear that he was standing above the toilet cubicle.
Daniel Chapo has been sworn in as Mozambique's new president 3 months after disputed elections. The ceremony took place in Maputo's Independence Square. President Cyril Ramaphosa attended the event. The swearing-in was boycotted by the main opposition parties who claim the polls were rigged. The opposition leader has said he'll lead fresh demonstrations. Chapo spoke at the ceremony.
Daniel Francisco Chapo.
I, Daniel Francisco Chapo, swear on my honor to respect and enforce the Constitution, to faithfully fulfill the office of the President, to devote all my energies to the defense, promotion and consolidation of national unity, human rights and democracy.
Top story: a study by the National Minimum Wage Commission has uncovered lack of compliance with the policy by some employers. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Goos.
In your sports this hour, 40,000 tickets sold so far for the Soweto Derby and Djokovic in the record books. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg queuing towards Crown Interchange. The M1 southbound in Melrose queuing towards Colette Drive. The N12 eastbound in Boksburg has a crash at Atlas Road. The N3 northbound in Bedfordview crash on the link to the N12 east at Gillies Interchange. The N14 southbound in Centurion has a crash before Trichard Road Bridge. And the N1 southbound in Pretoria, a stationary truck after Garsfontein Road. In KZN, the N3 northbound, a truck crash recovery underway involving an overturned large abnormal load truck near Van Renen village. Traffic is moving via contraflow on the southbound carriageway, so expect delays. The N2 northbound has a crash before Mgeni Road, queuing traffic both ways. The M7 St. John's Avenue southbound queuing through central Pinetown, and Mgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound slow moving towards Krombom Road. The M3 southbound slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. The N2 outbound is slow moving towards Hospital Bend, and the N1 outbound slow moving towards Okavango Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
The Oranges boys want to wrap up their group campaign on a winning note, while Stellies want to deliver a masterclass performance to triumph away from home. This is the Total Energies CAF Confederation Cup. Experience the joy of African football. RSB Pekane FC versus Stellenbosch FC on Sunday, 19 January at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Still to come, being day one at school, Pearl Magubane has put together a beautiful package piece, really, on day one of school and the interaction between the mother and her child. But what's interesting is the child is the child of Pearl Magubane. Listen out for that coming up in about 30 minutes time. You must listen to that. We'll also chat to, in fact not chat, we're going to play parts of an interview, a fascinating interview that Sherwin Bryce Pease did with Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool. Remember, he's now South Africa's ambassador to the USA again, and there's a lot that's come out of that just ahead of the inauguration of Donald Trump as the president of the USA again. Something's clearly never changed, do they? Well, what about the never changed regarding our exams? Certainly Panyaza Lesufi, the Premier of Gauteng, wants changes. He's saying, as you've heard, that the curriculum between independent schools and state schools are the same. When they then get to universities, that they would write the same exam, they'll get the same lectures, the same lecturers as well. What about... We've got Malusi who actually sets certain standards, but at this point in time, there are two different exams they write, and he's conceded that the private school, the IEB exam, is actually tougher. And he wants it to be the same, not down to say maybe equal at a higher level, perhaps, right? So we thought we have his opinion. Let's get the thoughts of Professor Mary Metcalf, who's an education specialist. Prof. Metcalf, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Thank you, Ashraf.
Thank you. I was watching you on TV yesterday. I'm just thinking about the many years you were involved directly with education in the Gauteng province as well. It's a whole different world, I know, right? But let's do this. Let's start by first playing a clip of the conversation I had with the Premier of Gauteng, Panyaza Lesufi, as he explained what he talked about his two different systems.
Yes. That is why I'm saying let the best standard be written by all children. We don't want to downgrade. If the standard of IEP we feel is the best one, let all the children write, because these are the children of South Africa. Why do you divide them? Why do you want other children to write a better standard and other children to write another standard when they belong to one country?
Okay. Can we confirm that the IEB standard of questions is actually higher? Is that correct?
I'm told. I've been in the education space for quite some time, so I'm told it's higher. But remember also the numbers. The IEB, if I'm not mistaken, are talking about 12,000 learners, and the public education system are talking about almost 700,000.
Yeah.
So the numbers are huge. But you can't have the privileged few, because we're not disrupting the exam. We're not saying, because I've seen other people insulting me that I want to disrupt private education. No. We say continue. But if your system is the best, let all our children write the best education.
All right.
Because these are the children of the same country. These are the children that go to the same university. These are the children that write the same exam in the university. Why should they write the same exam in university, but they can't write the same exam in grade 5, but in grade 12? But the debate by other education experts, unfortunately, it's clouded into the political space that we're in. And it's clouded by insult. We are not saying...
Explain what you mean, clouded by insult? What has happened?
I mean, many people have been insulting us that we have destroyed education. Now we want to destroy private education, which is not true. I mean, where we come from with our education system and to where we are now, you can see tangible progress. But the reality is, Ashraf, if you are my child who can be in IEB and your child who can be in the basic education, public education, can sit in the same exam and be taught by the same lecturer and write the same exam at university, are we not denying them an opportunity to start understanding that situation while they're still in grade 12? Because if you check the number of people that are enrolled for first year in universities across and check the number that graduate, there are a lot of learners that are lost out. And I want to argue that is attributed to these differences, artificial differences that we have.
Okay.
Because if you analyze those that are dropping out, you will see that we are perpetuating inequality here.
Okay, that's the thoughts, the proposal, the idea, really, the testing of waters of the Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi. Let's get back to Prof. Mary Metcalf. Mary, of course, not just listening now, but I'm sure you've heard this conversation all day yesterday as well. What's your thoughts? Does he have a point?
Well, Ashraf, I thank you for playing that clip, because I know that the Premier raises this every year, but I didn't hear the whole conversation. And I must say that I need to have this conversation with him, because there are some fundamental misunderstandings of the policy environment, and definitely a misunderstanding about the IEB being a better exam or of a different standard. Let me explain to you what I mean.
Okay.
Is that part of the education transformation after 1994 was establishing what we call the National Qualification Framework, which aligns the education and training spheres of activity. So we have an integrated education and training system, part of the National Qualification Framework, and within that there's key levels on the NQF. Now, if you look at the Umolusi statement this year, they talk about approving qualifications in the general education framework and in the further education framework. And within that, there's 4 different examining bodies that they look at the examination results of.
Mm-hmm.
One examining body is the DHET. DHET offers an exam that's in general education for ABET. Sakai is another examining body. It offers a general education certificate for ABET, and the IEB offers a general education certificate for ABET. What is general education? It's the first 9 years of the schooling system. The DBE intends to introduce a general education certificate, and the sooner they do, the better. Now, that might sound like it's starting a bit outside of, but the point about the National Senior Certificate. But what I'm trying to show is that there are a range of examining bodies across the education and training spheres, and there's general education and training certificate, and then it's the National Senior Certificate, which is at level 4. So the DBE offers a National Senior Certificate. The DHET offers the National Certificate Vocational, which is at the same level as the National Senior Certificate, but it's written in TVET colleges. So in terms of the National Senior Certificate, the DBE, the IEB, and Sakai all offer a certificate. Now, why is the level on the NQF important? It is because across education and training, students, learners, employers need to know that if you've got NQF level 1 GTC or NQF level 4 NEC, it is the same standard. So we've got different examining bodies across education and training. So that is the conceptual framework for having different examining bodies across education and training. This is established in law. So we have the Gen-FEDCA Act, which was passed in 2001, which makes it obligatory for Umolusi, first of all, to exist, and then to do the work of quality assurance of all examining bodies. So Umolusi is doing its job. It's provided for in law. The IEB, Psyche, everybody it's those 4 examining bodies are exercising and doing what is required by law. So the strong message and conversation that I would have with the Premier is to say he can't call on Ashraf Garda and the listening population to do something. He must go to Parliament.
Well, precisely. And at this point in time, he said he's testing the waters. It's not even ANC policy at this point in time, which is made clear. It's his opinion.
Yeah, that's right. So I think why I may sound sort of frustrated is that every year this needs to be explained. And my concern is that as I listen to so much of the educational debate in the season of educational debates, which is in January, is that there's so much misunderstanding. For example, I think that the Premier may have been making an oblique reference to the 30% distraction. So what you have is a public that needs clear information. That's what I see my role as. I'm not a politician. I'm a person who's passionate about education. I try to explain what education policy is so that we can have a debate that's informed. So I would say that the Premier may think that we should not allow for a range of examining bodies. He would then have to think about what he does about the range that we have. But if he wants to do that, he needs to make sure that there's a debate that's properly informed by the realities.
Okay, so I mean that debate that is properly informed by the realities, as you said, should happen in Parliament. But assuming it does happen, the Premier's premise to all of this would be that this one examination is an important step to create a sense of equality, never mind that there's a difference between private schools and public schools. I mean, does he have a point there, or is that off the mark?
That's why I raised and started with the role of Umalusi as the quality assurance body. Umalusi as a quality assurance body says we have looked at the examination results of all 3 examining bodies, and we can say they are all at NQF level 4.
Okay, which means there's an equality.
That is that's why we have quality assurance.
Okay, well, thanks for clearing that up, because even in the conversation with Premier Lesufi, he said he's heard that when some people say it's better, but he didn't also discount it to say it's definitely not the case. Like, considering he's been the MEC for Education in Gauteng, you'd think that maybe he would know better about that too, right?
Well, there may be arguments to say that whilst it is the same curriculum, it may be the case that in the privileged context of private schools on the whole, that there may be more opportunities to go into greater conceptual depth. That may be the case, but the examination is at the same NQF level. And Ashraf, I don't know how much time you have.
We've got about a maximum 45 seconds, yeah.
Okay. So the important thing as well about what people perceive is, why does the IEB do so well, and why is the DBE's National Senior Certificate not getting also 94%? And that's because the IEB market is the top end of the socioeconomic strata. Of course, there's families who sacrifice, who make the commitment. But if they were in the DBE's National Senior Certificate, they would remain at that level of the top. The public education system has a much broader range of participants, from the poorest of the poor. That's why we have the bottom range of performance. Thank you, Ashraf.
We need to have another chat. I can tell you now, there's so much more we need to talk to you about, more than anybody else. Professor Mary Metcalf, who's an education specialist. Well, I think she's got that right, don't you think so? What's your take on that conversation? This is the National Pulse.
The SAFM Playwriting Competition is closing on the 3rd of February 2025. Explore the theatre of the mind and write your 60-minute radio drama play and email it before 5 p.m. on the 3rd of February 2025. Late submissions will not be accepted. For further information about the competition, visit safm.co.za or send an email to drama@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Happy New Year, South Africa! SAFM wishes you a prosperous and joyful 2025. As we step into a new year of possibilities, we're here, leading the conversations that move us. Thank you for being part of the SAFM family. Here's to making 2025 a year to remember. Together, SAFM, leading the conversations that move us in 2025. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Well, here we are. We have an inauguration of a president in Mozambique today. We have another one coming up in the USA next week, and that's significant. Donald Trump back in charge, but also South Africa's ambassador to the USA, ambassador for the second time as well. But he himself has admitted that things will have changed differently compared to before. It's going to be the most difficult assignment he's had to accept on behalf of South Africa. And I say that because he had a conversation with the SABC's man in the USA show, and Bryce Pease, who spoke to him about just that and the difficulties that he may well face.
Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool, welcome back to Washington, D.C. and back to the SABC News Channel. It's good to see you.
Good to meet you again.
You presented your credentials to outgoing President Joe Biden on Monday. You will attend President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration next Monday. How are you, sir, navigating this changing of the guard and the acute implications it could have for Team South Africa?
I must say that this is probably going to be one of the most difficult assignments that I've had to accept on behalf of South Africa. The first time I came here, it was under President Obama. It was a language of solidarity. I think coming back now with President Trump, there's lots of uncertainty, but I do think that the interests of South Africa remain abiding. And we're going to have to pursue those interests, like our economic interests, like our socio-political interests. But I think we're doing it under enormously changed circumstances. So I would be lying if I did not admit to some nervousness about the assignment that awaits me.
Let's just talk about you being tapped by President Ramaphosa late last year to again lead South Africa's diplomatic efforts in Washington. You mentioned, of course, having served here under the during the Obama administration. What do you then view as the key priorities in the months ahead, particularly in the context of the incoming administration taking the reins next week? I mean, how did President Ramaphosa, for example, frame this assignment to you?
I think the mandate was very simple. The mandate is that we have to reset and rebuild our relationships with the United States. It's an admission that we have had setbacks. I think South Africa was in the afterglow of the apartheid era when I first came here, the afterglow of a very successful Soccer World Cup 2010, and in the anxiety of the health of a Nelson Mandela. And that gave us a lot of leverage. I think we now face different circumstances in the sense that South Africa may have earned the ire of quite a few in Congress and in Senate, that it may have earned the ire of quite a few people who misunderstand our principled positions that we have taken on human rights globally and misunderstand our non-alignment on certain issues. So there's quite a lot of explaining to do so that we are able to come to the key economic interests like the African Growth and Opportunities Act, like PEPFAR that fights HIV and AIDS, and like the continued investments that put so many jobs onto the table in South Africa.
There's no question, Ambassador, that there are definitely some Republican lawmakers in the main that have taken a hostile position towards South Africa. And of course you are now dealing with this trifecta in Washington, right? The White House is going to be controlled by Republicans, the Senate will be controlled by Republicans, and the House of Representatives. It's well established that South Africa's close ties with Russia in particular, perceived or otherwise, has irritated some Republican lawmakers who are gunning for a review of the bilateral relationship with Pretoria, with potential consequences for South Africa's continued inclusion in the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which comes up for renewal later this year. Share with us your thinking. What's your strategy here? How are you going to navigate these choppy waters?
I think that South Africa has always maintained a distinction between being in BRICS as one of the emerging markets of the world, developing countries of the world, and being in alliance with others like Brazil and India, who are also emerging democracies in the world. We've had two different conversations. When we speak to the one group, we speak about economics. When we speak to the other group, we speak about our democratic, human rights-based values. So we make those distinctions, and that's what Washington would need to understand. I think, secondly, our role with regard to Ukraine continues to be one of mediation and conflict resolution, and I think we'll continue to play those kind of roles that must be there. But I also think that South Africa, to a large extent, remains a proxy for African interests, and therefore a kind of precipitate removal of South Africa from AGOA has enormous implications for Africa as a whole, let alone South Africa. And I think that we need to open up a language not only of one-way transactionality, but of mutuality and reciprocity. And I think that what South Africa and Africa has to offer the United States is more direct access to critical minerals that fuels the new economy, the fourth industrial revolution in the world. And I think the invitation to the United States is not simply to buy it from us raw, but to add value to it in South Africa, so that I think we can begin to explore the deal that could be on the table.
And that conversation, that's part of it really, with Sherwin Bryce-Pease and the ambassador, South Africa's ambassador to the United States, Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool. Now, by the way, if you want to catch the full, I think it's about an 11-minute conversation, just go to SABC News on YouTube. You'll find the whole thing, SABC News on YouTube. In fact, I'll try and post a link from my Twitter feed as well later on. Comments that you may have on that, let me hear it. Not just that, but also other things as well. That are some of the biggest issues. And here's one, just as we get into, in fact, here's another issue about the IEB that you may just consider. Okay, I think we may struggle to just get all of that. Okay, let's just put that on pause. Let me remind you, if you just tuned in, yesterday I asked you if you tuned in for the very first time, please let me know, because I want to know. I want to know who you are, where you're listening from, and why you've just chosen to now listening to the National Pulse here on SAFM, right? But also where you are, you know, in not just the newcomer, even the regular listener. I want to know where you are, what you do, and as always, you know, if you've got a picture of where you are listening in with your dial locked into SAFM, that's absolutely fantastic. Your thoughts and suggestions in terms of the National Pulse are always welcome, and you know this. The National Pulse doesn't stop when the show ends at 6, because understanding the nation's pulse means it's a 24/7 position. So take SAFM Radio and myself whenever you think you have an opinion that you'd like to share on social media too. Okay, having said that, let's get the news headlines. Here's Greg Coase.
A quick look at the headlines. The National Joint Operational and Intelligence Structure says 84 illegal miners have been retrieved today from a shaft at the Stilfontein mine in the northwest. A study by the National Minimum Wage Commission's uncovered lack of compliance with the wage policy by some employers. And stakeholders in Mozambique have requested President Ramaphosa to intervene in the political crisis in that country. A full update, as always, at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 northbound in Woodmead is queuing towards Buccleuch Interchange. The R24 westbound has a crash after the Edenvale Road exit. The N12 eastbound in Boksburg has a crash at Atlas Road. The N3 northbound in Bedfordview has a crash on the link to the N12 east at Kilulis Interchange. Cloakop Road eastbound is slow moving towards Zierfontein Avenue. The N1 northbound in Midrand queuing towards Samrand Road, and the N14 southbound in Centurion has a crash before Trichard Road Bridge. In KZN, on the N3 both ways, queuing on the link to the N2 north at Spaghetti Junction. The N3 northbound has a truck crash involving an overturned large abnormal load truck near Van Renen village, with traffic moving via contraflow on the southbound carriageway, so expect delays. The N2 northbound has a crash before Mgeni Road, queuing traffic both ways. The N3 westbound queuing towards Cliffdale. The N3 eastbound has a stationary vehicle before Ashburton exit, and the M7 St John's Avenue southbound queuing through central Pinetown. In Cape Town, the N7 Jakes Hadwell Drive southbound slow moving towards Voortrekker Road. The N1 outbound is slow moving towards Okavongo Road. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards the N2 highway. 35th Avenue southbound in Alsies River, slow moving towards Owen Road. Stellenbosch Till Road is slow moving through Blackheath, and Strand Road eastbound in Bellville, slow moving towards the R300 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, let's open the innings with cricket, to me.
Well, Pretoria Capitals fast bowler Andrick Nortje has been ruled out of the remainder of the SA20 and the ICC Champions Trophy due to a back injury. The 31-year-old underwent scans on Monday afternoon, which revealed the extent of the injury, and his replacement will be announced in due course. In terms of the SA20, Paul Royals won the toss and they bowling first against the MI Cape Town. In the meantime, in football, over 40,000 tickets have already been sold for the upcoming Soweto derby between Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs. The clash between the Soweto rivals will be on the 1st of February at 3:30, and fans will also have an option to use a park and ride system just to avoid traffic and to just have more options in terms of public transport. And the transport can be found at Monte Casino and Mall of Africa. A ticket is $280, Sandton City and Clearwater $240, and Goldrift City $225, with the final bus leaving from FNB Stadium at 6 p.m. In rugby, the Crusaders have appointed a back as their captain for the first time in the franchise's 30-year history. Midfielder David Havili replaces All Black skipper Scott Barrett in the role. Havili has made 128 appearances for the Crusaders since his 2015 debut and was named vice captain in 2020 and has long been part of their leadership group. In the meantime, Hollywood Athletics Club manager Manfred Seidler says that Yvette van Zyl has been listed as one of the lead female runners for the upcoming Comrades Marathon on the 8th of June. Van Zyl is set to make her debut in the 89-kilometer down run from Pietermaritzburg to Durban, and Seidler says that the 37-year-old is channeling her energy into preparations for the big day.
Giving you a bit of an exclusive here, Yvette will be making her debut at Comrades, and we've discussed this and said, look, there's no expectations. Her big focus is to Oceans, and if she goes and has a smashing debut in Comrades, fantastic. If she doesn't, it's not a train smash. We'll see how she goes. But
well, that's it from my side for now. But before I go, Ashraf, you were talking about that list of the players.
Yes, so I saw this list of Premier League players who, and the theory was like, who's the finest Premier League player ever, considering it's only from 92 onwards. So, most players have played maybe 5 years in that period. And it's computer generated, so they put in a whole lot of, theories into it and came up with answers. So I have to tell you, I haven't seen the whole list because I haven't had the time, but that's why we've got you here. So do tell me.
I'm going to tell you, but I want you to just tell me off the top of your head 3 players you think are probably on this list, according to you.
Well, it has to be players who've won, whose teams that they played in have had sustained success when they were playing. So amongst them, I would think would be probably a player like Didier Drogba, Thierry Henry, Cristiano Ronaldo, but probably a guy like Wayne Rooney as well. I'm assuming Man United would be very dominant in this period, and then maybe one Man City player. The guy was the former captain, like the guy from Cote d'Ivoire, I think it was. Yeah, Touré, right? That sort of thing. I'm assuming that they would have played for 5 years at least to be able to get onto that list. That's what I think.
I'm looking at the list and I'm just going to highlight some players. Luis Suarez is coming in at 13th overall. Harry Kane, 12th. Eden Hazard is coming in at 10th, while Gareth Bale is at 9th. Sergio Aguero is at 8th. In terms of Didier Drogba, who you mentioned earlier on, is sitting 6th on the list. Wayne Rooney is 5th. Mo Salah is 4th. And then in terms of Thierry Henry, he's 2nd, while number 1 is obvious.
What's so obvious?
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Oh my goodness. Interesting. Okay, but Harry Kane is an interesting one.
Yeah.
Because he's scored a lot of goals, but in this period he has won nothing. He hasn't won a Premier League. It's Premier League. It's not FA Cup or Champions League. He's won nothing.
It's the Premier League, yeah.
So he scored goals, topping individual lists, but won nothing. Very interesting. Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah, Cristiano
there we are.
Ronaldo. I didn't think Wayne Rooney would be above Drogba, though.
Well, I would think because he played at the same time when they were winning far more trophies, and that's how you would gauge it, right? So that makes sense to me, yeah. But Yaya Toure is not there.
No.
Okay, they have a bias in favor of strikers, you see. That's the problem. Okay.
Well, with that said,
if you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
After a 0-0 draw at Orlando in December, the Northern and Southern African Giants meet again. The Red Devils want to create a happy mood for their fans, but the Buccaneers want to destroy the Pyramids by collecting maximum points. This is the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Witness the incredible flavor of African football. Al Ahly Sporting Club versus Orlando Pirates FC on Saturday, 18 January at 6 p.m. live on SABC2. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Right, listen up to this. Lorna Maseko and S3, where they're about to add flavor to your Wednesday evenings. Lorna invites you on a journey of discovering new ways of transforming South African pantry staples into delectable and budget-friendly meals. Now, this Wednesday, Lorna breathes new life into traditional favorites like fermented sorghum, pap, and mopani worms, that is, and the iconic bunny chow. You're salivating as I talk to you, isn't it? Adding her signature flair to these timeless comfort foods. So do the most with Lorna's Pantry, Wednesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Well, talking about facts and figures, Jimmy Moyaha gives you all of that when he hosts the SAFM Market Update coming up from 6 to 7. Jimmy, as the scene setter, what's your moving markets?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. Markets have been on the move since we got CPI data out of the US. We're going to be looking into that a bit later on. CPI data surprising to the downside, and markets absolutely loving that. South African markets as well. It didn't really move much until that hour when the CPI data came out. It did a whole 1.2% gains in that hour. Pretty much most of the top 40 gains for the day coming from that particular time. Markets obviously reacting quite a bit to US data, and they have been doing that for quite some time. But we'll look at some of the other market movements in a moment. For now, what's coming up on the show today, we're going to be taking a look at the latest rumors that have been surrounding Mazda Southern Africa, saying that Mazda, after 55 years, is decided to pull out of South Africa. We're going to be speaking to Mazda Southern Africa's CEO around that and to see if those rumors are true or not. We've also got a conversation around the minimum wage. It seems minimum wage has been going up, but alongside that has been an increase in non-compliance. A lot of employers are not abiding by the minimum wage legislation that is in place in South Africa. So we're going to look at that, and we're going to look at potentially what some of those implications could be there. Then we've got a conversation with Alan Gray around how they're seeing 2025 shape up from an investment standpoint. And then, because it's Wednesday, we've got an executive lounge segment on a Wednesday. We are speaking to the retiring CEO of Astral Foods, Chris Skitter, about his career and his time at Astral. He's been at the helm of the business as the CEO for more than 16 years, one of the longest serving CEOs on the JSE. So going to be an interesting conversation to have with him. But before we get to that, the market markets, as I said, have been responding quite positively to the US data that's come out. If we look at Asian markets, they were trading in a bit of a mixed bag. They would have been trading obviously early this morning, with most of them finishing in the red. The Nikkei marginally in the red, about 8 basis points in the red. Shanghai up down about 0.4%. ASX in Sydney down about 0.2%. Hong Kong up about 0.2%. European markets all in the green. They still had a bit of time to react to US data news. CAC 40 up about just under a percent, about 0.9%. The DAX in Germany is 1.5% to the green, and the FTSE in London 0.95%. Our own local markets, the all share up 1.69%. The leading sector there was financials. They were up 2.1%. Resources up 1.5%. Industrials up 1.5%. The top 40 up 1.8%. Bitcoin back towards $100,000 a coin, is at 99,490 in South African rand terms. That's about 1.86 million rand, because the rand is stronger, and that's a good thing. We started the week around 19 rand 22. We're down at 18 rand and 78 cents. So very good data points from the US around their inflation print, and we're going to discuss that in the show a little later on. Quick look at commodities before we go, though. Palladium recovering quite a bit as well, $965 an ounce. Platinum still struggling a bit, $944 an ounce. Brent crude, $80.76 a barrel, and the price of gold at the moment, $2,680 a fine ounce. Back to you, Ashraf.
Right, and just to end with, we often talk about this in non-money terms. What's the gold standard?
So essentially the gold standard was a monetary system in which countries' currencies would be pegged against the dollar or against gold and sort of linked to the gold price. So countries would then effectively have gold reserves, and then there'd be an agreed upon kind of fixed rate at which your country's currency would trade against the price of gold. And so a lot of countries, used to be on that standard. In fact, the first country that was on that standard was the United Kingdom back in 1817, if I'm not mistaken. They were the first to adopt the gold standard, and 1819, was when England adopted the gold standard. And one of the first countries to leave the gold standard was Japan, even before the United States left it. The United States, interestingly enough, in terms of the gold standard, had a preferential kind of a setup there where their currency, the US dollar, would still be one of the preferred currencies, and that was signed through by way of the Bretton Agreement that was put forward there. It gave them kind of a pegging of around $35 per ounce of gold, and all the countries have sort of come off of that standard since, and effectively it meant that countries would have to have the gold reserves to be able to transact, and currencies would be based on that. And nowadays, if fiat currencies, central banks determine how much is in float. It's not pegged against anything in value. It's kind of dealt with based on other currencies. So the system has changed quite a bit from a monetary policy. That agreement that the US had in place was called the Bretton Woods Agreement, and they had agreed that fixed rate of $35 an ounce, but that since has fallen away. I think the US did away with that in 1971.
Okay, got that, and you enjoy your show 6 to 7 coming up, the SAFM Markets Update. Right, this is the National Pulse. Let's get talking.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, I'll play your voice notes. I'll take your calls in a moment. But this is interesting. Of course, we know it's day one of the school year, right? So great excitement, but on the other hand, anxiety too, particularly when it comes to grade 1 pupils. Well, they were ushered into their classes to begin their 12-year school career, right? Now it's grade R's too, by the way, so 13 years. Now, some parents lurked outside the classroom, peeping through windows to catch the last glimpse of their bundles of joy. The SABC reporter, Pearl Magubani, and a mother of 2 boys, were amongst the hundreds of parents who took their children to school this morning. And she's done something rather cute in terms of this package, because the big focus is not just on other people, but her own family. One of her boys, and that's Kiara Betsway, is starting grade 1, and Pearl Magubani captured her morning with her very own son on day 1.
Hey, sleepyhead. Wakey, wakey. Okay. Yeah. Wake up, Nana. It's time for school. Good morning. Morning.
Grumpy and visibly annoyed as my 6-year-old Gerabezwe Ngwebe opened his bushed eyes while Big Brother Tatejo has been up since 5 a.m.
I'm so cold. Look, I have goosebumps.
Good morning.
Morning. I have goosebumps. That's why I took a blanket. It's like, yeah. Are you ready for today? It's the big day.
A quick bath and teeth brushed.
Mommy! Underwear!
And cereal for breakfast.
What are you going to have for breakfast? Would you like Otis?
Peaks.
I can't hear you.
Eat peaks.
Okay. While I finish packing the snacks and lunchbox.
Yeah, cheddar. When those finish,
Are you going to cheddar here?
cheddar cheese. Mommy!
Okay, Asha, please. Can you just have you finish your food, please?
No.
But we don't have time. Why are you not finishing your food?
And we're going to the same side. You're making me late too.
So there's hot dogs, yogurt, mini cheddar, and an apple.
I don't like apple.
You don't like apples?
Yeah.
Must put in grapes instead?
Yeah.
As we drive onto the school premises.
Gerabezwe, how do you feel about today, my baby?
I feel good. I feel excited about going to grade 1, and it's gonna be fun. And then we're gonna do a lot of work, and then so much work.
Gia's eyes grew wider and the body became stiff, and Big Brother Tatejo squeezed in a much-needed pep talk.
Stay strong. Never give up. Don't push yourself too hard.
Hugs and kisses while cameras clicked away, despite the little ones settling in without drama as anticipated. It's the mothers and fathers that can't seem to let go.
I mean, personally, I'm traumatized as a parent to have a grade 1 child. I can't believe he's grown up this quickly.
I'm excited, but I couldn't even get a picture. Like, he literally said, no, why? Like, I tried to take a video, and as he's walking, he turns around and says, no. So the video has... Why?
And after leaving the school premises, a little laughter as the children still struggle to tie their shoelaces.
Daddy doesn't even know how to tie his shoelaces.
Oh, are you also there?
No, we are struggling.
What are you
going
to do if this shoe goes loose?
No, the shoelaces, guys.
And that's it, the anger.
Yes.
And the frustration. So let's practice.
A sniff and the wiping of silent tears. However, the little ones are braver than we think and ready to tackle the world. Pearl Makubane, SABC News, Johannesburg.
What a fascinating package that is. I mean, have you ever done a story on your own family from the morning, like, wakey, wakey? I thought she was very gentle in the morning. Really? Like, come on, Kian, wake up. Do you do the same thing, like a light-hearted nudge? Or do you like, come on, you've got to go to school, man? Right. Okay, let's get thoughts from you.
Good day, Ashraf. We are talking to Tam here in KwaPaca. Thanks very much for bringing Professor Mary Metcalf. At least she clarified everything unambiguously. Yeah, I know what Premier Panyaza was alluding to. Yeah, it's a good proposal, but at least it must start from the bottom until the end. So there is no point of trying to fix the head while the leg is still not right. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, I think, certainly between Temba and Keys, my producers, getting first Panyaza Lesufi and then getting Mary Metcalf back on later to clarify, I think was just brilliant. It's exactly the type of media broadcast that we need to cover, different angles to the same issue. So we all collectively, including me, we all learn so much. I thought Mary Metcalf's position in terms of clarity was worth noting, and check it up as a podcast, safm.co.za.
Hi, Ashraf. Just like maybe it's time to look at the correlation between our South African driving test and what students learn to achieve that and our accident rate. And maybe it's time to correlate our syllabus and matric with our unemployment rate. Maybe it's not just job creation, maybe it's job suitability.
Well, absolutely. I agree with you about the job suitability. In fact, it's something I touched on yesterday. And you can even check it out. I have this feature called That's My Point. It's on my social media pages. Check it out on all of them. You know, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you'll find it there, right? Here's another. So I think you're spot on.
Ashraf, Mary Metcalf is saying these things are equal. But the thing is, the universities would prefer someone who has gone to the private schools. The companies, they look at those results again. If you've gone to a private school and someone is going to a public school, they prefer the one who is going to a private school. So to cut that one out, have the same exams.
Well, I have to tell you, how do you know that they prefer someone from a private school? I think you need to get the points. And once you get the points, then you have a chance to get. If you don't get the points, it doesn't matter which school you come from, you're not going to get in. So no, I don't think they prefer private school. In fact, in terms of the university transformation, they want to outreach across the board. They would want to take in as many people of diverse backgrounds, certainly from impoverished and underprivileged communities as possible. But you must get the numbers.
Ashraf, nobody needs to tell you any better than you know. When someone actually knows what they're talking about and knows the policies, the procedures, the rules, the regulations, what a pleasure to listen to them talk. When somebody makes nothing but assumptions and doesn't actually know, oh my goodness. Speak to that lady again. Let the public hear the proper things. That's what needs to be put out there, exactly as she said. The public needs to be educated about what is actual fact, rule, law, policy, procedure. Well done.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. That's why we got her. You know, obviously we need to get Panyaza Lesufi. He has a policy position of his own, and we covered it, as many have done so. But then we got, from an education point of view, from an educationist, who, by the way, for those who don't know, she was the MEC for education in Gauteng before. So she knows the inner workings of the politics of the country. But I really agree with you. I thought she was terrific.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Hope you're well. Compliments of the season. Yeah, just listening to Premier Lesufi has obviously got the wrong end of the stick. And like you said, previously being the MEC for education, one would think he would know better and he would actually understand clearly. But obviously he doesn't, and therefore he actually was not even competent as the MEC. You know, and really I think at the moment all he's trying to do is he's trying to stir up the emotions of people to say that some people are privileged and others are not. And I think that's really disingenuous, but that's typical from a politician. Mark from Cape Town.
Well, maybe your last line is exactly that, typical from a politician of all political parties, because that's what they do, isn't it? They lobby opinions and they shape public opinions and comments on the virtue of their own lobbying advantages that they have because of they have a seat at the table, don't they?
Afternoon, Ashraf. It's Yandisa in Tembisa. I was listening to Zolin Zimavavi speaking with Sakin about the illegal mining in Stilfontein. He said these guys are at work, are the workers, that he will go to court and hold accountable the government for the death of these illegal miners. I think maybe one day he will hold accountable the government for the killings. If the police are killing the cash in transit, highest criminals because he will say they are at work. Everyone is at work to him. That guy is always in the wrong side of the story.
Always in the wrong side. In fact, he's talking about that the issue about the miners is as bad as the Life is in the Many story. I think that's really the issue. Listen to that podcast from Sakina. Just go to safm.co.za, right? Hi, I'm a first-time caller, Dion. I'm listening in the Northern Cape, a little place called No Rafir. Love the show, Dion. Great. Love that you've listened in and you've told us that. Please listen again. Okay, let's get to... We've got 2 quick calls we can squeeze in before we end the show. Vuyiswa in Parktown North. Go for it, Vuyiswa.
Yes, thanks, Ashraf. You know what? I'm concerned about the way the atmosphere here of Trump. We are actually giving attention to fear, you know, because in Sesotho there's a saying, you know, African idiom, that the one that rejects you, you know, is the better. So why are people crying like a guy called General Bokassa, who cried at the funeral of Chadigo in those years and called him Papa after they had got independence for colonization? But when Chadigo died, the guy was lamenting so loud, said, "My Papa is gone, the oppressor." Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you are. You know what? Let's see how that whole U.S. political issue unfolds over the next couple of weeks, if not days, right? Vuyiswa, thanks for that. Last call I can take. Mike and Newlands, go for it. Mike, hi. No, maybe we've just lost
Can you hear me, Ashraf?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, go for it, Mike.
Sure. Ashraf, jobs are very important to our country. The AGOA agreement is up for grabs again. And when you had Rasool on your show, you didn't really ask him the tough questions. We definitely need the AGOA deal. But I would like you to have said to him, how are we going to justify when we supported
something so
and kill billions of people? How are you, Mr. Rasool, going to justify the fact that we have Russian ships in our harbor that load up arms and ammunition for Russia or whatever it is? We don't know. Our president won't tell us, and if he did, we wouldn't believe it.
Okay, my quick one. Are you listening to today's interview? Are you talking about today's interview?
Yes, I am.
All right.
All right. Ashraf.
He spoke to him.
Yeah, right. Overall, South Africa was a good place to invest in 2024. The FTSE All-Share Index generated a return of 13.4%, while the
spent nearly R1 billion going to court on 2 countries that we are going to now ask Rasool to reinstate the AGOA contract. That's a hell of a tough ask to give.
Okay.
And I would
let's see how that works out. I mean, listen, that was for sure a price piece. Perfect. I didn't ask him that question. Thank you for that.
You're great.
All right. That's in fact that's the show, right? Yeah. Let me just remind you. The show, The National Pulse, it continues after the show. What I'm trying to say, it's 24/7. You can post on social media, particularly on the X platform. You'll probably find Elon Musk busy 24/7 anyway. Use the hashtag The National Pulse. You can add your own comments. Do that anytime. But that hashtag is important. Tag me and tag SAFM Radio. But also, podcasts of all the things that we do are available. So just go safm.co.za, including all the things today and from before. Listen out. I'd love it if you can comment and share it with your friends as well. But very importantly, do what I do. Make a date. Catch the National Pulse tomorrow, 3 o'clock and then 3 to 6. That's the show. Thank you for listening in. It's now time for the news. Here's Greg House.
Thank you again, Ashraf. In this news update, more illegal miners retrieved from Stilfontein shaft and lack of compliance with the national minimum wage. Good evening. The National Joint Operational and Intelligence Structure, NATJoint, says 84 illegal miners were retrieved alive today and 18 bodies recovered.